probably leave out recreation, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
And we haven't heard from unions either.
Jody and Callie, can you hear me? Okay, awesome. Okay, we'll get you some. No, I think we're good.
Do you know if health or unions are
I've got tickets.
Unions are not, because I have on the board. Okay, so we have an hour for your presentation. Is there a certain amount of time you want me to let you know you're at so that we have time for questions? Okay, 40 minutes. Perfect. All right, everybody, we have KU Transportation Services here to present next. Whenever you're ready.
Good afternoon. Can you all hear me okay? All right. Oh, the screen is good. We're going to wait for the projector to come on here. Let me know when you can see something. Good afternoon. My name is Margreta DeFries, and I'm the manager for all the transit programs at KU. And I've been supporting all the aspects of transit since it moved to transportation services in 2007. I'm joined here in person today by Erin Quisenberry, our director, and Jody Funke from the Campus Operations Business Office, and Callie Long, our Associate Vice Provost, Vice Chancellor for Operations, are watching online today. I'd like to start with a brief overview of our organizational structure. Transportation Services is part of Campus Operations, which now reports to David Vranecar, the Chief Operating Officer of the university, through Callie in the Chancellor's office. We manage all of your transit services and also oversee all of the parking operations on campus. Our funding for transit comes primarily through the student fees set by this fee review committee and Student Senate, with another 10% contributed from parking funds. This year, we've also received extra funding from Central Administration to have pre-COVID levels of service because of the higher enrollment. This is the second year we've received that supplemental funding. The Transit Commission is our oversight committee, which is appointed by the provost based on names provided from the various senates. Unfortunately, we did not receive our membership appointments for Transit Commission until over winter break, and we have not been able to meet before the simulations were submitted for fee review. The transit services are operated by an outside service provider, and we are in year 2 of a 5-year contract, which was awarded last year to the same company we worked with for the previous 5 years, which is called TransDev now. They used to be called First Transit. It is the same company, though. Transit is full of jargon, so I'm going to quickly run through a few definitions to make sure you and I are talking the same language today. And then we'll outline the services that are funded by student fees and some of the challenges we've had this year. Then we'll talk about the simulations that were submitted for your consideration that make up the 3 fees that are part of transportation. And then we'll finish up with some discussion, a little bit, of how transit programs contribute to sustainability. And then we should have 15 to 20 minutes left at the end for all of your questions. We describe our routes as campus circulators, off-campus routes, or coordinated routes, and interlining and frequency refer to how individual routes are operated. Two other terms, efficiency and cost effectiveness, are how we evaluate our service. There's a wide range of perspectives about the goal of what KU's transit system should be. Should we serve the most students with the minimum cost, or focus on students who need transit the most? The definitions of these words change from people's perspectives. For students, the idea of efficiency tends to revolve around how often does my bus arrive? How long will it take me to get where I'm going? And how long will I have to wait for that bus? From the perspective of folks running the system, the idea of efficiency is geared. Oh, somebody has said on here that they can not see the presentation online. Is that a thing you guys want to fix before I keep going?
Sorry.
No, it's fine. I just want to make sure we.
Matea, do you know how I fix this? Okay.
Are you talking about on the Teams call they can't see the presentation?
It was a team.
Was it the Teams call that was
It
the
was-
issue, or was?
It was Teams. It was a Teams message.
On Teams, I believe.
Yes, you just go to Teams and screen share from the slide that has the presentation, I think.
Do you have Teams open on here? It's down in the corner in a different. So then share the screen.
Yeah, they're on Teams.
There you go.
That,
Let's go.
how do I get
And
it
then
back?
we go back to the presentation. I think that you'll want to.
I don't know what button to hit to get up in the bottom, maybe.
It's up now.
It is, but we're trying to make it full screen again. Hold on. There is a way. How do you do them? Is everybody okay if I just continue with it like this? All right. All right. From the perspective of folks running the system, the idea of efficiency is geared more towards how many people can we serve with the resources we have, and how many passengers are riding in an hour or on each trip or per mile. These metrics could be counted across the entire program by route or by vehicle. The cost of providing service divided by the number of passengers is used to calculate cost per ride, which I'll talk about more when we get to the ridership information shortly. I do always have to smile when people ask if we collect any data. We have massive amounts of data, but it's kind of hard to present it in a way that's meaningful for the public. I have one spreadsheet with 11 million data points in it, which is very dry and hard to look at. And graphs get a little boring, but the key point here is that we have data if you're interested in it. We just need to know what you're looking for. We are very happy to provide info, and any data related questions you have that I don't know off the top of my head or that you send our way later will help be informative to how I give you information in future years in this presentation. You might be able to tell that we are passionate about transportation. When I was putting together this PowerPoint, adapting the new KU brand template with photography from marketing communications, what I really noticed is how much a part of KU the buses are. They show up in so many photos of the university. In addition to our mission, which is to get students to and from classes, transit also helps students more easily access their student organizations and offices across campus. Those without cars or other forms of transit need reliable access to other fee-funded and valuable services like LSS, OMA, SGD, Burt Nash, Watkins, and CAPS, to name a few. Without reliable transportation, many students at KU would have some difficulty making connections with peers, obtaining health services, or maybe just even with commuting to and from class or a job. The most visible service we operate is KU on Wheels, the university's bus system. This is the detailed map from the back of the transit guide, which highlights how many routes travel across campus, including all of the KU routes, the coordinated routes, and 2 city routes. As you can see, all of the major roads on campus have some kind of bus service, giving students direct transit options between most major destinations on campus. The KU routes operate Monday through Friday during the fall and spring semesters when classes are in session. However, we do have one campus circulator and the coordinated and city routes, which operate year-round, providing links to campus from off-campus locations, even when the KU buses aren't running. In addition to the KU and coordinated routes listed here, the city operates 8 additional bus routes, 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Saturday year-round, which all students can also ride. They also have on-demand services that operate similarly to Safe Ride, overnights and on Sundays, and Lawrence Transit routes are fare-free again in 2025. Here's the full system map with all of the KU city and coordinated routes that went into effect a year ago when Central Station opened. The route changes were determined through a route redesign study in 2021 and 22. One of the areas of new service, this has a pointer in it, right? No? Well, there's an area of new service on Route 36, which is this bit right here, which was an extension that was recommended by the consultants to add in the area where students are living, which I'm going to say is pretty successful. So far this year, 7,622 passengers have boarded at the stop at the end of Route 36. That's 46 passengers per day, which is almost as high as the ridership at Meadowbrook or the Reserve. This year, you've asked us to address 2 specific questions in our presentation. How many unique students have we served in the last 2 fiscal years? And what changes have we seen in our organization from pre-pandemic to post-pandemic? So I'm going to start with the first question and point out that we don't actually have specific data about how many unique students we serve, because asking students to swipe their ID in a reader would really slow down the boarding process on a bus, and when there are 40 people getting on a bus, slowing it down seems like a bad idea. But also because that would have required a pretty significant investment in technology that we did not feel was a good investment of student fee dollars at the time. Instead, I'm going to answer this question using a combination of data that we do have. Ridership is half of the equation, and the other half is system coverage. In this graphic of last year's FY24 ridership, I've grouped them according to categories. All of the routes, KU and city routes that come to or through campus, are colored red. The city routes that don't touch campus but connect through routes that do are the ones in blue. The nighttime services for both university and city are in the brick color, and ADA paratransit services, that light blue in the corner. Before the city went fare-free 2 years ago, we were able to count student ridership on all the different types of routes and in these categories. And if I apply those percentages to these numbers, out of this total, 1.94 million rides were by KU students. And that's about 76 rides per student enrolled on the Lawrence campus last year. This slide is a quick update of what the ridership in the fall semester looked like. We don't have January yet, so it's not really quite year to date. As you can see, this is proportionally very similar to the annual ridership last year, but the total is a little more than half of last year's total. So I think we're on track to grow our ridership again this year. The other half I mentioned, and a different way to analyze the question of how many students we serve, is to look at this map that overlays local student addresses with the routes that touch campus. Almost 12,000 students live within a quarter mile, that's 1 or 2 blocks, of a bus route that can bring them directly to campus. That does include students living in residence halls. If you expand this to students living within a half mile of the routes, the number goes up to 13,400, and another 1,000 students can reach campus with a transfer from other city routes. 2 slides ago, I told you that 1.94 million rides is 76 rides per student enrolled. If I recalculate that using this number of students living within a quarter of a mile of a bus route with direct access to campus, if every student who could ride does so, that is 163 rides per student. Obviously, we all know not all of the students who can ride do, but these numbers highlight the value of transit to the student body. The other question you tasked us with answering is to describe the changes to our organization before and after the pandemic. Ridership is the main place where we've noticed changes, along with a fee cut that we had 2 years ago. We had a significant drop in ridership during the pandemic year, which is FY21, which is actually not on this graph because it was so low. It was only 10% of the year before and looks like nothing. So I skipped it when I made this graph. That was, hybrid class schedules and limiting the number of passengers who could get on a bus at the same time. And then having the fee cut the following year meant that we had to reduce bus service across the system, which makes sense because one of the ways that you evaluate us is whether or not we have ridership. And so having lower ridership meant that you guys probably thought we didn't need the level of service that we had. It completely makes sense. One of the ways that we were able to maintain having the same number of bus routes was because of that route redesign I mentioned earlier. The key was that we interlined Route 30 and 36 and Route 34 with 38, which meant that we could use a fewer number of buses to achieve the same level of service. The supplemental funding that I mentioned earlier is the other reason that we still have robust bus transit service today. The one-time contribution last year and this year is not a permanent funding source, but it allowed us to return to the pre-pandemic service level with 20-minute frequencies on the off-campus routes and 7-minute frequencies on the campus circulators during peak times. Switching gears, J-Lift is our 88 paratransit service, so this is complementary to bus service. It provides trips for students and staff who are not able to easily use a regular bus route. The Student Access Center handles certifications for students, and HR does the same for faculty and staff. In 2020, we piloted adding Burt Nash to the approved destinations for J-Lift trips in order to improve student access to mental health services after a referral from CAPS, and we are still continuing to do that today. KU Safe Ride program was established in 1986 and is extremely popular with students. The service provides a free ride home from anywhere in the city limits. How many of you have used Safe Ride? A few? Excellent. It operates 7 nights per week when classes are in session in the fall and spring semesters and 3 nights per week in the summer. We also have service on New Year's Eve and the 4th of July when it doesn't fall on a regular service night in the summer. This is a convenient, secure ride home with a paid professional driver, not a volunteer. KU police report that offering these free on-demand rides home to students within the city of Lawrence has cut down on the number of suspected DUI and DWI on and near campus. Ridership, as you can see, has been increasing pretty much every year except the pandemic year. And this year we're down slightly over the year before. This is significantly probably due to the fact that all of the Safe Ride cars got recalled in August. And so we're operating Safe Ride with fewer vehicles this year. I'm happy to report that our vehicles, the recall notice has been lifted and they are in the process of being repaired and will be back in service sometime in the next 2 weeks. Using the spare platform to run Safe Ride, we have data dashboards that help us look at service metrics. We now have 2 full years of service with in-depth data to understand how Safe Ride is performing and can be optimized to serve more students in a timely way. This snapshot covers the fall semester we just finished. Cancellation rates around 40% are considered average for this type of service, but our cancellation rate is up to 49%, and our no-show rate has increased from 10% last year to 16% this year. That no-show means it's a student who booked a ride, who never appears during the 5 minutes the car is waiting for them and haven't canceled the ride. Now, that contributes to longer wait times, but also I think it's a chicken and the egg problem. Students are canceling their ride or finding another way home while they're waiting for Safe Ride because the wait time's been a bit longer because of having fewer vehicles. So it all runs in this giant circle. To alleviate pressure on Safe Ride, we have a Safe Bus route that restarted 2 years ago, or 3 years ago at this point. So this ridership graph for Safe Ride and Safe Bus includes the first 2 years from Safe Bus back in FY8 and 9, so that you can see proportionally how the restart of the Safe Bus route compares to the same route 15 years ago. We do also have 2 services that are not fee funded. One is our very popular airport shuttle service around class breaks. The fee is $49 per ride this year, and we have already transported almost 1,300 students to and from the airport in the 3 breaks so far this year. And then secondary use is the use of buses for university departments and events, football, basketball shuttles, class field trips, admissions and orientation are just a few examples of how that works. And then each department is paying for its own service for those buses. I have a few words I'd like to add about coordination with Lawrence Transit before I get to the part about fees. This timeline shows you the key milestones of our coordination efforts, which started with a task force with Student Senate in 2005. Today, we have our 4th joint service provider contract, and having one company operate all of the service, even though we have separate contracts with the company, is a major component of our coordination efforts. We have all of our services operating jointly from one building, which maximizes resources by eliminating the need for 2 entirely separate groups of dispatch, maintenance, and management staff. This includes physical infrastructure, vehicles, technical hardware and software, among many other things. These contribute to the more efficient use of student fee dollars. If we were to stop coordinating, the cost of operating KU-funded services would go up. For passengers, coordination means having access to all the bus routes and merging all of our customer-facing information platforms, such as printed maps and schedules, the app for real-time bus information, and Central Station for centrally located and accessible customer service. If you have not visited it yet, Central Station is over at Bob Billings and Crestline near KU Police. It is on university property that we've worked together with the city to develop into this lovely platform, and they've repurposed part of a housing maintenance facility to build the structure that is the station. This shows the layout of the bus bays, and each route has an assigned spot with digital signage showing next departure times. And the area with hash marks on the left is where regional transit like Greyhound and the K10 connector stop. That is a lot of background information. And so now we'll move along to the overview of the fee simulations that were submitted for your consideration. Before I start with those, I do want to mention that inflation is always a factor in our costs. Our contract goes up every year. It's built into how the contract is bid. And the cost of gas tends to go up. I'm sure you're all noticing that at the gas station. We notice that too. And KU uses more than 100,000 gallons of fuel a year to run all of these services. We do have a slightly lower price at the gas pump right now, just based on recent drops, which is nice. And we'll work on locking in a fuel rate for the rest of the year once we get to the right point when the prices are at the right place. The largest cost is our service provider contract. That covers all of the maintenance staff, maintaining buses, the drivers, insurance, and all of the things that go into operating the system. So, the fee. Our current fee is $65.75, and we are operating at a loss. This amount does not cover the full price of the transit system. You gave us an increase of $5 last year and $9 and change the year before after the fee cut in FY22. And we appreciate those increases very much. Without them, we would have had to cut routes. With the higher enrollment, we've been very lucky that University Administration gave us the supplemental funding this year and last year. And that is how we've been able to maintain the level of service that students are used to right now. So this $15.50 represents the real cost of operating buses exactly as they are operating today. And I want to make it clear that we know that this is not a number that you can give us, very likely. If you do, amazing. That would be amazing. But we are realistic in our expectations. We just want you to know how much of a deficit we will be working with if we don't have additional funding. So this is kind of a hard one. If you stay flat or cut our fee or raise it somewhere in between $0 and $15, then we will have to consider ways to cut the service in order to operate within the budget that you've given us. But it is your fee, and we will work with what you give us. So let me show you why this fee is not gratuitous. I mentioned inflation earlier, and I have this graph that I've made that shows how much our prices have gone up and how inflation would affect our service. In 2013, we came to fee review and said, the cost of our contracts go up, and it would be a good idea to increase our rate with inflationary amounts to keep up with the cost of providing service. That's the red line on this graph. The brick one is inflation from our proposed amount from FY15 to now. And you can see that our ask this year would take us to slightly under where that line ends up. But it gives you some perspective of the increase in cost that we've experienced and where the fees have been. So the blue line is the fees, and the last number is the number that you would end up at with the proposed amount in the simulation. So this is basically to illustrate what inflation does to our cost. I do want to mention cost effectiveness. We're doing a lot with the money that you fund the system. And I was looking up today, so it's not in this presentation. The average nationwide of bus service is $8.42 per ride is the actual cost of providing bus service. And the average cost per ride at KU is $3.27. So from a perspective of spending your money efficiently, that tells me that we are doing as much as we can with the money that we have. It's really interesting to consider circulators versus off-campus routes, but all of these are still much lower than the national average. The most expensive off-campus route is $5.55 per ride. And the lowest cost per ride is on, does anybody want to guess? A red circulator. The average is $1.07 per ride of people getting on the bus. So that is how your fees cover all of the students riding the bus. We did have some confusion last year about why we would be increasing fees to pay for city routes. And so I do want to mention very quickly that city routes are funded completely separately and not by student fees. They have federal funding and local funding through sales tax and a little bit of state funding, while the university has the fee dollars, parking dollars, and this year the supplemental funds from the administration. We do have 2 coordinated routes, and I think this is where some of the confusion comes from. We have co-funded routes 11 and 12, and that's why it might seem sometimes like it's mixing together, but operationally they are funded separately. I do think this tells us that coordination is working because people are not fully aware of which buses are on which service, and I think that's not necessarily a bad thing. I'm going to move along to the Safe Ride fee, and if you have questions, we can go back to these slides at the end. I mentioned earlier that Safe Ride is still, I have these in a different order. Apologies. We'll talk about bus procurement. Buses cost a lot of money. How many of you would want to guess what a bus costs? Anybody? It's $600,000 per bus. And so we're proposing a $1 increase for the bus procurement fee to help keep up with the inflationary cost of buses. Bus prices go up 5% every year, and this year that's a $30,000 price jump in the buses. We do have a cycle in which we're replacing buses. We started buying 3 buses a year, and to stay within the fee dollars as they are, we've changed that to 2 buses every year, with a 3rd bus when we accumulate enough funds. What just happened?
Sorry about that.
No, it's all right. So anyway, prices of buses go up, and this is to keep our, I think it's slide 34-ish.
So that one.
Yep.
We got
Hey, there you go.
no.
No, it's all right. Well, it'll take it a minute to cycle through. All right. I've just learned you don't want to click the button a bunch of times. It will only advance it 1 anyway. All right. So $1 to help cover the inflationary increases in the cost of buses. We also offered a scenario B in which we would add an additional $3 to start a replacement cycle for the Chrysler Pacificas that have been recalled and are coming back for a Safe Ride. The university now owns these vehicles. They were paid for through the last 5-year contract. And this recall notice was the 3rd one in 6 years. And so I want to be able to start replacing them on a cycle that we have not determined yet, probably over a 5 or 7 year period. And vehicles that are appropriate for Safe Ride that would expand our capacity cost around $100,000 to $130,000 a piece. And so a $3 fee would help get us started on that kind of replacement for the safe ride vehicles. So that is procurement. These are also dollars where we'll work with what you give us, but we do need to keep up with inflation. The cost of repairing buses as they get older does go up enough. With our original used fleet, I can tell you that we were spending the price of a new bus in parts and maintenance when we had used fleet that was very old. And so part of the goal is to keep having new buses in the fleet so that we're keeping them fresh enough that they're not costing $400,000 in maintenance. So just talking about our 15-year replacement plan. These are a little out of order. I apologize. So safe ride, back to where I thought it was. We have been more efficient with how we are able to provide rides in Safe Ride using Spare. So a lot of the ridership increase has been because we're using technology. All of those ridership increases have occurred using the same number of vehicles and hours that we've had all along. But we have been operating at a loss for many, many years. And I pulled this carry forward graph out of my last year presentation. So the numbers at the end might be slightly different this year. But the point is, we had a huge carry forward several years ago, and we've been using it up instead of asking for fee increases. But at this point, the carry forward is gone this year, and we are operating at a loss. So this year, part of that supplement from University Administration is going towards Safe Ride to keep it whole through this year. But the actual cost of operating Safe Ride is $17.30 in fee instead of $12.30. So this is an area where if you don't increase the fee at all, we will need to cut service in some way, and we'll have the Transit Commission help us determine whether or not that means reducing the number of vehicles in service on any given night, which would make longer wait times, or taking away some nights of service, like not operating on Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, because those are the lowest ridership nights. Or we could reduce the hours and only run for 2 hours instead of 4.5. So there's a lot of different ways to address a reduction in service. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. But you saw earlier, there is a lot of unmet demand in Safe Ride. And so I did also calculate what it would cost to improve service on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights, which is $1.60. Now, this would only work if you also fully fund the rest of the service. If you just give us $1.60, I don't think I could justify increasing 3 nights when I have to take away other nights. But that is what the scenario B is about, is to help improve the service and meet some of that unmet demand with the 49% cancellation rate. So that is why we put that in the proposal. So a few words about sustainability, and then we'll have time for questions. Transit has a lot of value to sustainability efforts, and having a healthy transit system supports 3 spokes of Jayhawks Rising, which is stewardship, community and culture, and student success, because access to campus and services contribute to student success. Public transportation contributes to sustainability by reducing greenhouse gas emissions from cars and providing people without cars access to school, jobs, shopping, entertainment, and services. And planning for the future is a key way to continue to improve all of these for all students. For the past 20 years, or over the past 20 years, the cost of car ownership has increased steadily. It was $8,000 a year in 2003, and it's over $12,000 a year in 2023. So just the basic cost of having a car to drive has gone up 50%. This is just one of the ways that keeping your student fees intact can help impact students, and they can have transportation without spending a lot of money. It's also inherently more sustainable than single car drivers. One bus eliminates 30 to 60 cars from both traffic and parking. Imagine what parking in Lot 90 would be like if there was not a bus system and all the students were driving to campus. I personally can't imagine that because I worked in parking before buses were free for students, and it was horrible. So if you multiply that by 25 trips per day, you can imagine how many more cars would be on campus. We also have lower emissions with the using 5% biodiesel for most of the year. We can't use it in the winter because biodiesel gels faster, but we do use biodiesel for all of the months when it's warm enough to run it. We do generate about 2,000 tons of greenhouse gases per year when we are doing using diesel. And so, that skipped a graph that I had. There's been discussion about electric buses, and electric buses cost double what a regular diesel bus costs, and at 1.2 million as a starting point, they are not really cost effective for us yet. And so the return on investment of an electric bus is not quite there. The city is working on a zero emission transition plan, and that does include enough data. And with the city's electric buses that are on the road right now, we are able to collect data about how electric buses operate in Lawrence. And so maybe someday, and with some really rich benefactor, we could electrify the university fleet, but it is not something we're proposing to you at this time. I'm very interested in it, and I participate in all of the meetings relating to electric buses because I'm keen to figure out if we can ever get there. But the initial investment right now would be between $50 and $75 million, and that's not an amount of money that anybody has for the university's bus fleet. We also do some work to promote alternative transportation, so referred to as multimodal or transportation demand management. And buses also contribute to the walkability and bikeability of campus by reducing the number of cars on campus. I'm going to finish up with that density map again to show you how many students can easily access transit in Lawrence. KU is a university with a worldwide reach, and having a robust transit system benefits all students. Students from high-density urban centers might be used to using transit where they come from and prefer it when they arrive here. Students from rural areas can learn to use transit, and that might inform how they work towards sustainability in their lives after college or lead them to value it when they move to new cities. Providing transportation to people without cars, people who might have difficulty driving, and people who want to learn about transit empowers everyone. At a time when college is less affordable, transportation services help to significantly reduce key attendance costs like maintaining and owning and maintaining a vehicle. And that's it.
Thank you so much. What questions do we have? We'll start with Chris.
I had 3 questions, one at a time. Fantastic. I'll start with my most important question then. Hypothetical, say we have a marginal amount, $1. Say we have $1 in our hands. We're deciding to give it to transit operations or to Safe Ride. What do you think we should do?
I think I'm going to let you guys decide which one is more important to you because each of them will need cuts with just $1.
Could you describe some of the things we should consider?
Well, I want to remind you that the amounts that we put in the simulations are just to make them fully funded at their current level. And so a $1 increase in Safe Ride is going to be a higher percentage of the amount that we need. And so it probably will go further in Safe Ride. But if we don't have any money added in transit, then we will certainly have to cut bus routes or reduce frequency or both. And so it's chicken or the egg.
Just one thing I would add to that is, as Margaretta stated in the presentation, currently the university has given us a supplement for funding over the last 2 years, and it's went to cover both, not only the operation for KU on Wheels, but it's also went to cover the shortfall for Safe Ride. So whether it's $1 in Safe Ride or $1 in KU on Wheels, we would be hopefully trying to go back to the university for a request to supplement both programs, although that funding wouldn't be guaranteed.
Nathan, Simra,
I have a question about what you just mentioned with that supplement. If I'm understanding it correctly, on like slide 32, I believe it was like 12% that was covered in the past year. Do you have any insight into what you might expect them to cover, if anything, in the future? And is that fee request that you're requesting from Senate, is that considering administration covering anything, or?
We have been told not to plan on it. If we receive it, it will be a lucky thing that we will not know until much later. It was a surprise the first time and the second time when we got it, and it is not something we want to plan on. The amount in the simulation is as if we would not have gotten that supplement.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Follow up on that a little bit. Fiscal year 24, so not the current year we're in, but last year, the university supplement was about $280,000. That's equivalent to roughly $6.50 student fee. If the multiple, I was using was like 43,000. I can't remember for my days back there, but roughly like that. This current year for fiscal year 25, the supplement was $625,000. That's equivalent to $14.50 student fee. Any monies not used would go back to the university on the current dollar amount that we have. So I couldn't tell you, to be honest, if we're going to be able to get that again. University's got a lot of projects that are out there, right? And here we are knocking on the door trying to get some additional funding because we know Student Senate can't cover it all. You take one bus off a circulator route, well, there's a lot of fired up students. You take one bus off an off-campus route, now all of a sudden you're not on the 20-minute headway, you're looking at 30, 45-minute headway, more cars coming to campus because those students can't get in time. So we're trying to work as best we can.
Sorry.
Thank you for presenting. Do you know why the Pacificas were recalled, and is that an issue with specifically them, or is it like something about the industry?
The Chrysler, sorry, I should stand in front of the microphone. The Chrysler Pacificas are hybrids, and the recall was related to their hybrid battery system. And I believe that has been the same issue all three recalls. They've had, if I remember right, I skimmed the recall notice back in August, and I haven't reread it since then. But there was some question of whether or not they might catch fire while the vehicle was driving down the road. And Chrysler told our maintenance manager that we could go ahead and use them in gas mode, but they would not warranty that they would work. And so we are not using them because we don't want them to catch fire while on Safe Ride service. So it's specific to the Pacificas.
Real quick, what year was this?
They are 2018.
My question's in regard to Safe Ride also. So in the presentation and just based on my general understanding of how it works, Safe Ride is, the vast majority of Safe Rides are called Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Obviously, there's like weekend stuff going on that people are utilizing Safe Ride for. Have you guys considered cutting like the Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday to then use those dollars to put towards some of your other initiatives, a safe ride, like maybe start to phase out the vehicles or expanding service to reduce those longer wait times on the weekend and kind of allocate that week time towards the weekend when you guys are getting more traffic?
Yes, we have. So the question is, are we optimizing the service essentially? And we do that in several ways. We only operate 3 vehicles on Sunday compared to 8 or 9 or 10 on Saturday. So from the get-go, we've always had fewer vehicles running on the lower ridership nights. The new software platform that we're using, after the first year of data, we used it to change some of the vehicle schedules so that because we could see when the peak hours are, which is the 11 to 1 time period. There are a lot fewer people riding at the beginning of the night and fewer people in the final hours of the night. And so we changed the schedule of the drivers to account for that. And we moved some of the hours into other nights of the week. But the average number of rides on a Sunday is 62. And that's not a small number like the 20 in the summertime. And so it's very hard for me to consider whether or not we should take Sunday away altogether. And so that's one of the factors that Transit Commission will need to look at.
Yeah, so this is also related to Safe Ride. This is probably not the best idea considering some people are inebriated on certain nights when they're asking for a Safe Ride.
No.
But have we considered like a penalty system for repeated offenders of cancellation or some sort of measure to bring down that 49% cancellation rate to encourage, like a more optimized system for picking people up so the wait time goes down and more people can be serviced?
So the question is, could we penalize people who are abusing the system to help encourage them not to do that?
Yeah.
We could. I mean, that's always a possibility, but our goal has always been to just get students home safely.
Yeah.
And so I'm not sure how to jive a penalty system with a not penalty system. However, I can pull a list of who has the worst cancellation rates. And I think I mentioned earlier, I have a spreadsheet with 11 million data points. That is all the Safe Ride and City on-demand service from the entire year last year. And from it, I was able to find the 30 worst offenders. And in this particular aspect, we were looking for people who were booking on both services and then canceling on whichever one didn't come first. And that was bogging both systems down. And I sent them each an email and I said, hey, can you help us understand why you're choosing to do this? I have this little survey. And by the way, it would be really helpful if you would just pick one or the other at whatever time or night, because it helps increase the wait times for everybody when you're taking a chance on everything. So it is possible to figure out who the egregious offenders are, but we're choosing a more subtle, hey, did you know this is an issue kind of approach at the moment.
I have a follow-up.
Bethlehem, Chris, John, Brazil.
Okay, this is a quick one. You mentioned just a second ago that like Sunday night average ride count's about 62. Do you have a statistic for whatever your busiest day is?
Yes, I'll be happy to tell you. I have this per night of the week because each night has a different level of service. Sunday is an average of 62 passengers per Sunday night. Monday is 64. Tuesday is 102. Wednesday is 126. Thursday is 206. Friday is an average of 215. And Saturday is an average of 226. But the highest number all year was 434 on one Saturday night. The highest Friday night was 367. The highest Thursday night was 343. The highest Wednesday night was 238. The highest Tuesday night was 214. And I'm willing to bet if I go back and look in the data, that was the day that it was a Tuesday after the Super Bowl, because Tuesday nights don't get 214 passengers. Monday stayed under 100 for the high, and then Sunday was 157, which I also bet is related to the Super Bowl. The cost per ride in Safe Ride is $19.34 per ride, compared to the national average is $51 a ride in demand response services. So demand response is anything that works like paratransit or Safe Ride, where somebody is calling to schedule a ride and be picked up. So our average is very low compared to the national average for that type of service. This year we have 2,200 active users in Safe Ride.
Just for the record, real quick, Super Bowl's always on a Sunday night. I don't know why that is or why I know that, but we'll probably have more cars out this Sunday night. Obviously, because it's Super Bowl night, the Chiefs are playing. If my Cowboys were playing, there's probably the same number of cars running on a Sunday night, but you haven't had to worry about that for 25 minutes.
Going back to the question of university administration supporting you, would it be fair to say that, assuming that you could be eligible for this support again, you've been told not to plan for it, but assuming it is a possibility, is it fair to say that this depends on us contributing enough money from the fees, like above current inflation, to put you on a trajectory where you could get back to having essentially a flat fee after inflation?
I would not like to speak for how university administration makes its decisions or make any assumptions about it. I do think that if Senate and fee review advance the fee at whatever rate is reasonable within your whole plan, that is an indication to them that you want to keep supporting transit. Not cutting our fee also shows them that you want to keep supporting transit. And we have a terribly hard time saying you should give us money and not Watkins, or you should give us money and not CAPS. We're not saying you shouldn't give them anything. All of the services are important. And that's why we're committed to working within the budget you basically give us and making it work as well as we can.
Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. I was just wondering, as a quick follow-up on the point about some egregious offenders of your cancellation policy, about how many offenses did they have of canceling?
I do not remember that number off the top of my head. If you shoot me an email, I can look it up tomorrow morning and let you know.
Wonderful, thank you.
So regarding that survey that you sent out to like the worst offenders, was there like any particular recurring theme that you got from them that we could use to change the process up?
Only 2 people filled out the survey, so I don't think it was meaningful. And I have not gone back to look, like I haven't pulled all the data again because it's a lot of work to put all the data together in a way that tells me the information. Although I do plan to do that with this year's information to build up plans. I think it's more important to focus on an information campaign and using like notifications in the app and things like that to help tell people what to expect and how the service works. And so one of the things we did was also revise all of the notifications that are in the app and added a couple to help people have a better expectation of what was going to be happening with their ride. And our cancellation and no-show rate is up. And so I'm not sure that that's been effective, but it might be interesting when I go back and pull the data to see if any of the egregious offenders are left. Because if they're not, and it's more spread out over everybody, then it's more about how the system is working and not about specific issues.
So Nobody
We
else has a
are out of
question.
time for questions. If we have further questions, so we can send them.
Gotcha. Got plenty.
My email and phone number for later are on this.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys for all the great questions.
Thank you so much.
Megan, I'd just tell you real quick,
Mhm.
years past, you guys have always given me a holler in the evening.
Yes.
I'll probably be asleep by 7 o'clock. I've already told guys.
Okay.
Status. I'm teased a little bit, but Margaretha's phone number, give her a holler.
Perfect. Will do.
Questions and she'll get you going.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
We get out by 3 o'clock. All right, that's the goal.
That's hilarious. That's 2 hours. Jody, thank you so much for joining. I'm going to end the Teams call. Yeah. What? What? It's just when I have a class until 11. I can't. And to be fair, last year we started deliberations at 1. Yeah, that's what we're doing. We have we have the Senate presentation at 11, and then no, we have Senate admin presentation at tonight, and then the regular Senate one's tomorrow. Because the Senate admin was Matea and Caitlin that were moved out of Silk that they mentioned in the SEC presentation. All right, everybody, we have our Edwards campus presentation now, so please give that your full attention. If everybody could please take their seats again.
You can come on up here because I'll have you introduce yourself.
Whenever you guys are ready, you can begin. We first give our full attention to our presenters.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having us. My name is Rhonda Sharp, and I am the Administrative and Fiscal Officer Director at the Edwards campus. Just a little bit about me. I am new to the role that I'm in now. I've been in this role for about 8 months. Prior to that, I spent over 25 years working here on the Florence campus. As a matter of fact, I've supported all of you for a very long time. With the help of Casey, she kind of took that over, but have lots of experience with helping you all with your financials, this process. So this is the first time I've got to be on this side of this process. So thank you and bear with me. I will go over the Edwards campus in general because I know this is a new fee for you all, and it's not been a part of the campus fee review in the past. And then I'd like to have Ashley introduce herself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ashley Calatrusha. So I am a student services specialist at the Edwards campus, and I've been in my role for around 3 years now. However, my connections to Edwards are long before that because I actually got my undergrad degree there in literature, language, and writing, as well as I'm currently a student in a master's program at the Edwards campus, and I've also been a previous student hourly employee at the campus as well.
And thank goodness Ashley is here because she knows since I have not been in this role very much, you may have questions for me that I just don't have the answers to yet. So, and I will also tell you that because I am so new to my role, if you do have a question that one of us can't answer, we will definitely get back with you with information. So with that being said, again, I'm just going to take you over a highlight of just a little bit about Edwards campus. So I put these up here. I'm not necessarily going to read them to you, but I do want to point out that there is the Edwards campus, which think about that as the buildings, the space, and Overland Park. And then we now have a School of Professional Studies, which is just like the School of Education or School of Nursing, any of those. Which is to increase social mobility by providing high quality academic programs, research, learning initiatives. So a lot of the statistics I'm going to give you today are related to the School of Professional Studies, but there's a lot of other students that use the Edwards campus that are affiliated with programs here on the Lawrence campus. For example, sociology, social work, so social welfare, let's see, what was some psychology, education, environmental studies. So there's a whole lot of numbers that we can't pull technically because they're not in the School of Professional Studies, but we are still, they're having classes on our campus, and they are also using the services that we offer. So just a big distinguish there between the two. Any questions about that? So I want to give you a quick profile of the KU Edwards campus. 51% of our students are undergraduate, 49% are graduate, 52 female, 38 male, 10% did not identify. This is a big distinguisher. 64% work part-time, 36% work full-time. Average student age is 27, 31% identified as an ethnic minority, and 25% were first-generation college students. So this is what Edwards campus is catering to, is people like myself who got my degree while I was working full-time and raising children. So that is a lot of the students that we see here, but not all. There's also online programs, so that contributes to some of those numbers as well. What else did I want to point out about this? And again, that's not including some of the students that are taking classes that aren't part of the School of Professional Studies. Did want to point out when we reviewed this back in the fall of 2023, it has definitely increased by now, but we have more and more students taking classes at both campuses. At the time that we did that, we had 800 students taking classes at both places. Some of the degree and educational options, again, I won't read you this list, but I will point out some of our more popular ones. Criminal justice, fastest growing program right now at the university in its entirety. Let's see, health sciences are very popular, information technology, and project management. All of them are great, but those are the handful that get a lot of student enrollments. And some of them are newer, like criminal justice, and they're continuing to grow a lot. So new programs that are either getting ready to be kicked off or are in the process of being developed is the BAS in professional performance. The nice thing about this one is even though it's a KU Edwards program in the School of Professional Studies, it's actually going to be teaching classes here on the Lawrence campus, so we're excited about that. And we're working on a nutrition program, which will be the exact same way. And what does anybody know what professional performance is? Just out of curiosity, it's kind of cool. I asked because I had no idea.
Is that like the psychologists in like a high intensity environment, like a coach type of thing?
Could be. Yeah, so a coach, but it's not exactly. So anybody else? Why would you? Okay, so I will just tell you because I had no clue either. So they say some good guess. Okay, I would have never guessed. So this is a degree for individuals who want to promote themselves. Maybe they are an online influencer. Maybe they are a physical therapist, or they are a personal trainer or a coach, or somebody that is kind of working independently that doesn't want to go through the traditional business school, but wants to get a background in how to promote themselves, how to handle their finances, all that marketing. If they hire supported by human resources, so that's what professional performance is. But again, it's brand new, so it's coming up, and it's interesting to see how many people will be interested in classes like that. The other ones that are here, Edwards campus is also the first to start kicking off some CBE programs. Does anybody know what CBE stands for? So it's competency-based education. And I don't know a whole lot about it, but it's where you can use your work experiences to earn college credit. So that's big and coming, and that's being all shepherded right now through the Edwards campus. So that's really exciting. Okay, let's see. So you asked a couple of questions that you wanted us to answer. So here's some statistics for you. How many unique students have you served in the last 2 fiscal years? Again, School of Professional Studies, you can see in 2023, we had a little over 1,000. And then in academic year, we had individual of about 1,300. The enrollment continues to grow. And what I mean by that is, for example, as of Monday, our enrollment this spring semester was over 1,600. So that's how fast the Edwards campus is growing right now. Does that give you some of the insight that you're looking for on that question? Okay. What changes have you seen in your organization from pre-pandemic to post-pandemic? Of course, I did not work there pre-pandemic, and so Ashley might want to get some insight. But what I found by asking some of the staff that I work with is that, we're still increasingly so needing to meet students where they're at. We have more students enrolling in online classes. That's a different set of challenges on how to support students when they're not coming in to get in-person services. So we are, it is our goal to meet students where they are at, and we're already providing so many of those services. But what we're seeing is more demand for that. With the student fee structure changing, we are also working very hard. It'll probably take a couple of years, but working to get the same level of service to our students at Edwards campus that you all have here on the Lawrence campus. So, any questions about that? The question you asked me. No. So I am going to, let me do one more slide, Ashley, and then I'll let you go. So just quickly, going over our fee. Right now, our fee is $11 per student credit hour, and our estimated revenue under the system right now is just a little under 500,000. Hopefully we'll have enough growth where we get to 500,000 in fiscal year 26. And I don't know how much history, I'm not going to get into a lot of this, but Edwards is now a part of this fee. It used to be that anybody taking classes on the Edwards campus had to pay a separate fee. And their charge was $82 per student credit hour, but it did not cap at 6, it capped at 12. So we actually had students paying almost $1,000 in fees if they were taking 12 credit hours. It did generate about $1.1 million in revenue, so we've had to do a lot of shuffling to move some money around. And then the biggest blessing about this is that students taking classes at both campuses were some of them were paying over $1,500. So now they pay the same rates that everybody does, which is extremely important. A lot less expensive for students. It's easier for everybody involved. So the required student fee allows KU Edwards to fund our staff and students, providing student services and recruitment, student service and academic support, technology resource, facility upkeep. There's a whole long list, which I'm going to let Ashley talk to you a little bit more about, but I wanted to give you an idea of how some of these dollars are being spent. Thank you.
All right. So a little bit about our hub of student services. This is my Welcome and Success Center front desk. So this is fully ran by student staff, and they really are our company. So this is just a couple of my team members, and they work from 9 to 7, pretty much every day except for on the weekends, and they're 9 to 5. But anytime you call our number, you will get one of them answering your calls. And so they help students across online, Edwards, Lawrence, prospective students. They can help anyone with everything. That can be from getting them connected to departments on campus. This can also meeting with advisors in the A space. They can also help schedule. So I have had students call me earlier this week asking to meet with financial advisors on this campus. And so we were able to go ahead and get them scheduled with financial aid and their advisors. And so a little bit about them. They are all students that work they work at Edwards, some go to class at Edwards, some are in fully online programs, and some actually are in programs that are only offered on the Lawrence campus. So this is an employment opportunity available for all of our students. Okay, so just a little bit of what student services is at Edwards. So we've got a wide list here, but a couple of things I really wanted to touch on is this advising and financial aid and student accommodations. So we now have a student services hub in the Regent Center building, and this is where our students can go and meet with advisor if they need to. They can walk in and meet with Jose, which is our financial aid advisor, but we also now have a student services manager. And so this person can help any student online and in person connect to resources they may not know they need. And so they're working really hard at connecting our students to different aspects. That individual also does our test proctoring. So test proctoring is open from 9 to 6 every day. And so students can come schedule an appointment and get their test proctored there. And then we have recruitment events. So an idea of a recruitment event is we just recently had 300 local high school students that come and attend Biotech Day. That's where our students present research that they're doing. And from that, we actually get area internships available for some of those high school students. And that was a great event that we just had. Some of our current student events that we offer are partnerships with Lawrence, but also individual partnerships ourselves. So any students available to come to any event we have. They're also listed on Cork. So if you use Cork, definitely check out our events on there. But we have everything from career fairs. So the UCC came out and did a career fair for our students. We had professional headshots taken and all of those offerings. We also did virtual options for students if they wanted to connect with the UCC that way. We offer guest speakers. This could be through different departments, and this could also be through the school itself. Cyflix, I'll talk about that in just a couple minutes, but it's a great addition for everybody. And then additionally, one of my favorite events is coming up, and this is something that any of our students can attend. And it's where our students present the research they completed their final year in school. So I have students that are online presenting in a room like this, where there are people from industry and they're able to present the work they did in their undergraduate degree or graduate degree to people who may become their future employers, even if they live out of state. So we really work really hard at making sure all of our events are meaningful, but also available to anyone wanting to attend. So a little bit about our spaces though. We've worked really hard at kind of updating it since COVID. And so with that, we now have individual pods. So if you want to come study and you just want to be alone, we've got little pods all throughout the campus, perfect places to study. And I know there's quite a few Lawrence students that seek it out because we also have free parking. Collaborative spaces, so kind of shown over here, we have been working diligently at making some fun spaces for our students to build community in. So we have Pop-A-Shot, we have Cornhole, we also have Tic-Tac-Toe, and my favorite is coloring. I get the most beautiful pictures left for me, and I hang them up like a mom with their fridge. Available spaces open to anyone. We have a lactation room as well as a reflection room. Anyone is welcome to reserve those spaces if they need them. They just do that to the team at the Watkins Center. And then finally, our clubs. We've got a nice mix of clubs that are in person and online. Some are definitely more active, doing a whole bunch of events. That's shown with our pre-med club. They're going to do 10 weeks of wellness. So the first one they're doing is they're going to work on blood pressure and kind of helping everyone know why is your blood pressure important. And these are students that are ultimately going to be in school for like a med degree, so hopefully Katie Med. So just a little bit of an overview. And then Cyflix. So tomorrow we have Cyflix. It's a free monthly movie every month. And so any student can attend. I know I've had Lawrence students attend, especially during Hawk Week. Quite a few Lawrence students came for Ferris Bueller's Day Off. And then finally, we also have criminal justice legal speaker sessions. Here's some of our upcoming ones. And I know this has pulled in students who not only are at Edwards online perspective, but also Lawrence. I know when we had one earlier this fall, we had quite a large turnout of students coming.
So you might also mention on the Cyflix that there's a discussion. It's not just
Oh, yeah.
watching a movie.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so a little bit about Cyflix. So we first watch the movie, and then we have a fun Kahoot game. The Kahoots actually get a little competitive. And then we have a fun panelist. And somehow there is a tie to each one, whether it be scientifically or not. So, for example, Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Everybody's kind of seen that, right? We talked about mental health and burnout with Ferris Bueller's Day Off. So we really addressed a variety of subjects. I know with this upcoming one, we're looking at either doing Wall-E or Castle in the Sky, and that's really going to be an environmentally based one. So they are all embedded into different topics, but they are professionals that come out and speak afterwards in a panel discussion. And then you can ask questions if you want, but there's usually prompted ones as well. And so it's a great way to expand different knowledge in different areas you might be interested in. So yeah, highly recommend coming out tomorrow and watching Princess Bride. And then here's just a general overview of some of the student events I've had. Some of this is a mix of in-person and online offerings. So for example, Teleparty. Every student that takes any class at Edwards campus would have gotten an email sent to them for the Teleparty. They could have joined the link. They voted on our Student Services Instagram what movie they wanted to see. Barbie won. So we had a live Teleparty showing of Barbie one afternoon, and then we showed it through the end of the event. So we replayed a couple of times, so anyone that wanted to join could join whenever. A hit has been karaoke. They are quite the karaoke group there. And so it's just really kind of a mix of different events we've had, and we often partner with like orientation transfer programming, the UCC libraries, as well as Huckley.
Okay, and just to wrap us up here, so just reminding you, Edwards Campus fee currently is set at $11 per credit hour, estimating about $500,000 in revenue. We are not requesting a fee increase at this time. As the new budget manager, I really want to take some time with the budget and make sure that everything is, aligned with student services, which is for the, probably 85 to 90% of it is now, but if it's not, it will get it that way. We want to continue to engage with students taking classes at the Edwards campus in person and online, and Lawrence campus as well, to ensure that we are providing the support that is needed, and of course co-curricular activities, which are important, and continue finding ways to promote 1KU and to bring additional programs and services to all three campuses. And I think that was all that we had. Yep. So your turn to ask questions.
Thank you so much.
That's enough time.
What questions do we have, Christy? Sorry,
So you are not requesting a fee increase for next year, but I assume you know at this point that we are very strained with our current allowed increase. Could you walk us through a potential decrease scenario for the Edwards campus student service fee?
We just had a big one. We went from $1.1 million down to $500,000. So that's already been what we just did this last year.
Was that with moving you into the Lawrence?
Yeah, that was. And so because of that, our resources are already being strained. And so shuffling around, looking for other resources, I would say it would make a big impact because we agreed to come into this process to help students, knowing that we were going to have a big financial impact because it was important. So to answer your question, would there be an impact? Yes, it would. I'm just starting on my budget projections, but what I've already figured out, if I can get things slimmed down, we're going to spend every penny that we get.
Yeah. I had a follow-up question for Casey.
Do we have any other questions?
It's a good follow-up question to both projects. We did this whole process together.
It was my understanding that when the Edwards campus student services were brought into the Lawrence required student fees, that their programs would have a negligible change in the amount of funding. What I just heard was an over 50, was it halved?
A little more, yeah.
A little more than halved.
Yeah, because the fee amounts that the students were paying was double what the students here were paying. So now they moved into what the fee structure is here. And so now their revenue is completely like split.
Yeah. And so if we were still, like, for example, those 1,800 students that are taking classes this, or 1,600 that are taking classes this spring, if you were to calculate out how much fees that they're contributing to the overall fee process, it is almost triple than what we're receiving in revenue. So that's another way to look at it. So we really did take, Edwards Campus did, and of course I wasn't working there at the time, I was on the fee committee, but they really did take a generous step to realign their fees in order to make this happen for our students.
Okay, thank you.
And so essentially without those Edwards campus students participating in the fee structure, what the Lawrence campus collected fee revenue would be way less, because you guys are actually getting a benefit now of having these Edwards campus students with this fee.
Like I calculated it, it would have been for a whole year easily, even if I was conservative, it would have been well over $1 million that our students are helping collect and require campus fees. So,
Yeah, and then similar.
Hi, thank you for presenting to us today. I was just a little confused over the per student credit hour just point that you were talking about, because my understanding is that each student would just be paying a flat $11 as part of that 500 and some fee, and then that's extrapolated per all the students to get about that $500,000. So could you just explain that per 11 per student credit hour that you were mentioning?
well, it's part of the fee structure. So every student, regardless of whether you're on the Lawrence campus or on the Edwards campus, once you enroll, you're paying one fee, and $11 of that fee is going to the Edwards campus for us to use to support the things we just went over, and providing us right about $500,000 hopefully for the year. Is that answering your question?
I think so.
So
It's
part of the overall, it's now combined with the overall package. So if we tell, and I don't remember what the numbers are off the top of my head, but if we tell a student they're paying $300 in fees, the max, that we get $11 of every fee that's paid up to the max. I don't know that I'm explaining it right.
I think she's talking about credit.
Yeah, do they pay
So
like?
up to the specific credit.
well because
No,
just
it's the same thing as with all the fees. So if they're paying per credit hour, we get $11. So I think the new system
Well,
is.
in the past, Edwards campus students, their cap of what they were paying for their student fees was much higher than what the Lawrence campus students were paying. Because that's what we did, is we aligned that so that that cap like matched more equal. So the Edwards campus students were paying more in their fee. So now that's brought back down. Now it's capped at, I don't remember.
Yes, probably don't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but it's capped at 12 hours. I mean, 12 hours, you don't pay any more than 12 credit hours. Where, or no, this is six credit hours, I'm sorry. Where it used to be that the Edwards campus was a separate fee. So if you took a class at the Edwards campus, you paid $84 or whatever, $86, whatever that was a credit hour, and 100% of that went to the Edwards campus. And that revenue was just, used on the campus for all kinds of things, including a bond. So one of the ways we're able to do that too, to answer one of the financial questions, is that we did get a bond paid off the same year that this came in effect. So that reduced, and I think reduced our need of like $300,000 to $400,000 a year. So that helped in the process as well. I forgot to mention that. Does that answer your question? Sorry, I don't know if I got it. Okay.
Thank you for presenting. I had a question on programs, and you said that criminal justice was receiving a lot of enrollment, and so I wanted to know how much does that contribute into your revenue and like potential expansion of programs that are kind of like the heavy hitters to kind of help bring in additional revenue.
Yeah, so we do not get revenue yet from the School of Professional Studies. We just have a flat budget, so our per credit hour right now, if we're doubling enrollment, we're not getting additional funding from the university to support that. That's twofold, but so that would be your state tuition dollars. We just get a set budget, and that is what we are spending as far as state tuition dollars. Where other schools are getting, there's a formula where they're getting credit and additional funding if their credit hours are increasing. We're not in there yet. So to answer your question, right now, none. So we're doing all this work to get things for the betterment of the university. But at some point in time, it will be something I'll want to look heavily into and whether we'd be better off doing it that way. Now, one thing about the Edwards campus, which is unique, is that there's a sales tax that is paid for Johnson County residents. And I don't remember 0.01 something, very, very small percentage. Everything that's bought goes into what they're called a JCERT, or the Johnson County Educational Research Triangle, I think is what it stands for. And those funds are then distributed between the Edwards campus, the KU campus in Olathe, and there is a medical center component to that as well. So it's those three areas. So we do get a lot of our classes, not all, but some of our courses, if they cannot fund anything at the Lawrence campus, it has to be Overland Park or Johnson County. But so we have classes that are 100% funded on those tax dollars. But we have to be very careful about how we spend that, because there's a separate audit process outside, in addition to what's done at the university. And that board is, they watch the money very well to make sure it's being spent correctly. So we do have that as a resource as well.
Not sure the mic is working, but, yeah, this is probably less speed related, but I know that certain courses that have analogs here at KU are not transferable between degrees, like clinical lab sciences, for example. I know at KU might be a departmental question.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to answer that one for you. I mean, maybe after I've been here, do you have any insight to that? No, okay. But if you want to get my information, and if you have a specific example, I would be glad to find out for you and see if we can get an answer. I know that there's always issues with transfer credit, and I get that, but we definitely are looking at ways of making that work better, because we get a lot of transfer students from Johnson County Community College. They get their first 2 years there, and then they come to the Edwards campus to finish their 4-year degree.
Thank you guys so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And feel free to reach out if you have any additional questions. Casey definitely knows how to get a hold of me, so.
You press the red button, right? Red button once. And then it pulls up a says RFP.
All right, everybody, we have our next presentation from Watkins Health Services. And then you can use this clicker, and that one's go forward, or if you'd rather use the keyboard. If we could all give our attention to our presenter.
Turn on.
Hello. Are you guys all worn out? It's the end of the day. I'm Ellen Herman. I am the Administrative Director at Watkins Health Services, and I am very happy to be here this afternoon. So just a little background on Watkins, and for those of you who don't know, HERO, the Health Education Resource Office, falls under our budget. So I'm going to talk about them on their behalf as well. We're the health center for KU students. And it's shown that when someone feels better, they do better. So we're always focused on the well-being of the students at KU. We play a very crucial role in the success of all of the students here. Students can utilize the health center for both sick and well visits. So our focus is to provide high quality, affordable student health care that supports the Jayhawk learning experience. HERO provides a variety of programs, events, and presentations to support innovative approaches towards optimal health while maximizing academic and professional success. They have 4 main topic areas. That's health education, alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs, sexual health and healthy relationships, nutrition and food security, self-management, and mental health. Student engagement is a huge part of what HERO does, and all the services offered by HERO are covered 100% by the wellness fee. So there's never a charge to participate in any of their programs or events or presentation. And I apologize if I'm reading more of their stuff because I don't have it memorized since that's not my department. So we do have a number of student employees at Watkins and in HERO. Watkins has 14 health navigators right now. Each one of them is a 0.25 FTE. That gives us a total of 3.5 FTEs. If you're not aware, the health navigators work at the front desk at Watkins. So if you've ever come in there, it's the person that greets you at the front. These are people who are generally interested in getting into the medical field and want some exposure. They answer questions, greet visitors, and give directions within the building. They also would retrieve a wheelchair if someone needed it, if they saw them struggling, things like that. We also employ 14 pharmacy students in the pharmacy. They're also 0.25 FTEs for a total of 3.5. 4 of them are clerks, and those are generally pre-pharmacy majors or pre-med students. They can run the front counter and answer the phones. 10 of those students are pharmacy interns, meaning they're already licensed by the Board of Pharmacy because they're far enough along in their program that they can do that. And they can perform most of the duties of a fully licensed pharmacist. So they are crucial in us being able to meet our budget because we do get less expensive help, but they're high quality. And our pharmacists love training and working with the pharmacy students. Hero has 3 students that they employ. They're also 0.25 FTEs each for a total of 0.75. The peer health educators in Hero work alongside their employed health educators, creating, implementing, and evaluating health education programs, events, and presentations. Hero also supports interns and practicum students to work, observe, and shadow within the department to enhance their academic experience as well as fulfill program requirements. So at Watkins, we have a total of 31 students employed and a grand total of 7.75 FTEs. Watkins does have a carry forward balance that we need to reserve for large projects that would not be covered by KU. In fact, if you weren't on this committee last year, we missed our budget by a little less than $50,000 last year. So we pulled that money out of our carry forward. And that's another thing that we would use that for. But we did help replace the roof on the building, help replace the heating and air conditioning systems, and something happened. I have paper just in case of technology failure. Mhm. Oh, well, that's okay. Okay, we've also used some of that money for major remodeling projects and offset the cost of an aging radiology system. Additionally, we're required to keep a surplus of funding that would sustain us operationally for 90 days should that need ever rise. And the Hero has a 700 account that has a carry forward balance. The wellness fee is the only source of revenue for Hero, so they typically reserve that 700 account for special projects and continuing education for their staff. Once that account is depleted, it won't ever get any more funding. It's not sustainable. So for volumes, I pulled our first half of the year, so July to December of 2024. That gives us 6 months of data on the health side. We had almost 17,000 encounters with students. Of that number were a little over 13,000 visits with our medical providers, or 78%. For this same time period, we're already ahead of where we have been over the last several years by almost 1,000 visits. For fiscal year 2024, on the health side, we had a little over 29,000 encounters with students. Of that number, 23,493 were seen by medical providers, or 80%. So you can see our ratios typically about the same from year to year. And what we would see other students for that we would count that wouldn't see a medical provider, in case you're interested, is they might be coming in for a nurse visit or a vaccine or something like that, that we wouldn't count as a visit with a medical provider. So in fiscal year 23, we had 27,850 encounters. So you see it went up a little last fiscal year, and a little over 22,000 were visits with medical providers. But that 80%, 78 to 80% is usually typical for us. And then we did serve, I didn't say this in fiscal year 24. I know you all had asked this. We had 12,642 unique patients in fiscal year 24 and 12,087 in fiscal year 23. That means that some of the patients came back more than once. Hero doesn't have the ability to track unique encounters, but they can track overall encounters through sign-in sheets, classroom attendance, manual counts, etc. So in fiscal year 2023, they had 23,444 encounters, and last fiscal year they had almost 27,000. Prior to COVID, they had about 28,000 encounters per year. So they've made some great efforts to try and get the numbers back to pre-pandemic. On the health side, there were some trends related to COVID a few years ago, mostly because students were taking a lot of online classes. And when they're online, we can't really see them a lot in the clinic if they have something like a sore throat or a sprained ankle. We're obviously now back up to pre-pandemic volumes, and we're also typically busier during that respiratory season. So from about October to March, that's always a busy season for us anyway. Student engagement is at the heart of what HERO does. During the pandemic, they had to get creative on how they engaged with students. They used a lot of social media platforms, Instagram, and it became crucial on how they actually gave the information to students. Now they continue utilizing some of those same things that were born out of COVID. Still using Instagram, Mindful Mondays, Wellness Wednesday, Sex Positive Fridays, etc. They recently added TikTok to broaden their reach and expand creativity. Okay, so on the Watkins side, the health side, so for those of you who don't know, 4 years ago, we transitioned to the University of Kansas Health System for oversight. Because of that, the staffing salaries were imbalanced with that of their peers at the health system. So at the very beginning, almost everybody got an increase, but there were some departments that hadn't been looked at. Over the last 4 years, we've looked at all of them. They've all been brought up to be equal with their peers at the health system. We were in danger of losing people when they found out that their pay was not equitable to that of people doing the same work at the main campus in Kansas City. We've now increased everyone's salaries, and now when we hire new people, they're brought in at the correct rate. Something we did a couple of years ago was we switched to a staffing model that's called team nursing. When I first started, the clinic was extremely heavy employed with registered nurses. Registered nurses are expensive. They're very much needed, and they definitely have their place in the clinic, but they're not trained to do work in a clinic. They're trained to do work in a hospital. So not only did we have a lot of nurses that it could lead to kind of a less satisfying experience for them. But we also didn't need as many registered nurses. What we needed was medical assistants. They are the role that's trained to work in clinics specifically. So it's a satisfier for them because that's what they've been trained for. So what we did was we switched our staffing model. And what it did was it gives each one of our providers their own medical assistant. And then each team of 3 or 4 providers and medical assistants is managed by a nurse. So this is the team model. We actually can get more employees for less money. Because the medical assistants are at a lower rate of pay than a registered nurse. We do have some positions in our budget that we're still recruiting for. We kind of have some ongoing turnover in some positions, and so there always seems to be some in our budget that we haven't filled yet, and those need to be accounted for. I will say that any decrease in the student health fee would cause us to have to make a reduction in workforce or change the services that we currently provide at no charge. So just so you know, the wellness fee accounted for 72% of the revenue for Watkins, and the other 28% comes from ancillary services. Ancillary services includes laboratory tests, x-rays, our pharmacy, procedures that we do, anything that we might bill the patient or insurance for. Our other source of funding comes from a small faculty and staff clinic that we have. It's very low utilized because we don't do their primary care. What we do is if they become sick at work or something semi-urgent comes up, they can come over and see us. But for their ongoing care, they still need to go to their primary care provider. The reason for that is we want our focus to be on the students who are paying the fees. And so we do bill for those visits. So it does give us a little bit of revenue. There is some additional revenue that we should start getting from insurance payers. We switched to a in-house flu, RSV, COVID test. If any of you have been over there and had to have that done, We do those in-house now. That should pull that revenue back in-house. We had been outsourcing that to LabCorp. And then recently we noticed that we weren't quite getting reimbursed as we should be from a couple of our large insurance payers. So I'm in the process of negotiating higher rates of reimbursement from them on that particular test. We did bring physical therapy and sports medicine in-house a couple of years ago. They are clinics that are owned by Lawrence Memorial Hospital, but they use our space. So we charge them rent to make it fair for using our space. That money goes into an account that we can use to purchase unbudgeted equipment, items like equipment. So we have never had to dip into our budget for equipment that we purchase for Watkins, at least in the last 4 years. The wellness fee is the only source of income for Hero. Hero does receive some grant funding specifically for the Jayhawk Betty system, but they have to apply for that every year, so it's never guaranteed from year to year. We do have a maintenance fee, as you all are aware of, and I just wanted to let you know a little bit of how we use that money. We've used it recently to put in new flooring and paint in the PT area. They are very, very busy clinic, and they're paying us a good amount of rent. And so we wanted to make the space as appealing as they wanted it to be for and since it's part of the building, it's part of our responsibility. We put new paint in the lab area. They just wanted something more inviting. So we painted the walls red and blue and gave them a digital board for messaging for students who are waiting. We added some handicap doors in the CAPS area. And then we had some areas that had been converted into storage areas, and they still had sinks in there. Nobody uses those sinks. So what happens is every time they turn off the water main on campus, they turn it back on, we blow seals and end up with water damage. So we had a bunch of sinks removed in some storage rooms to keep that from happening. And then we did install over the last year some cameras outside the building just for security. Ours was pretty much one of the only buildings that didn't have cameras on it anymore. And it's not just for our staff safety, but the police department enjoys having them there too in case something happens around that area. We don't anticipate any major costs for the building in the future, but it is an extremely old building, very, very old. We continue to have issues with very cold exam rooms, especially this time of the year, and it seems like we have facilities over all the time working on that. And then we occasionally have some plumbing issues. We just had to have some bathrooms worked on in the last couple of weeks. So in case you're curious what that wellness fee covers, at least the health portion of it, if you know, we converted it to a wellness fee and now it covers Watkins, Ambler, and CAPS, but that health portion of it allows students to be seen by medical providers at no cost. That means there's not even a copay. So students can come as often as they want. And it's a satisfier for our providers too, because if, let's say they see you today and you have a sore throat and they say, you know, if you're not feeling better, come back in next week. They wouldn't want to do that if they didn't think that the student had money to come back in even for a copay. So it's a satisfier for our staff as well. But those office visits are covered for the physicians, the nurse practitioners, our athletic trainer, our psychiatric nurse practitioners, and our social workers. So it's a pretty broad group that the office visits are not charged for. And I already talked about the ancillary services that we do bill for, but we do significantly reduce our rates for those services compared to what you could get in the community. For example, a simple x-ray might be $25 as opposed to hundreds outside. We do manage the compliance of university policies for KU, meaning TB and other things like that. And we are participate in the emergency response plan for campus. So those are just some of the things that we do. For Hero, they offer all their health education programs such as animal therapy, wellness fairs, safer spring break, and all these other opportunities, as well as outreach efforts and presentations that are requested by campus partners. We've done a lot of work on the customer experience over the last couple of years. We've shifted from talking about customer service to talking about customer experience. And the reason for that is that customer service kind of alludes to being nice and friendly and helpful, which we want to do all of those things. But we want to look at everything that impacts the student's experience in the building. We're looking at wait times. We're looking at, do we have the right drugs in the pharmacy? Do we have the right appointments available? Are we getting people in and out on time? We're looking at parking, believe it or not. Is the place clean? Is the building, clean and like a nice experience to be in there. So we're looking at a lot of things that impact the customer experience. So we hosted 16 flu and COVID vaccine clinics around the campus this past fall to bring the vaccines to the students instead of having them always have to come to us. We continued our patient assistance fund, and we've helped over 300 students with over $11,000 in unplanned expenses over the last couple of years. We made improvements on continuity of care, meaning if you came in to see somebody a few weeks ago and you're calling back in and you need to see now, especially if it's for the same problem, we should be making sure to get you in with the same person unless you specifically asked not to. And then we can continue to work on that walk-in patient experience. Walk-in patients are, we have a lot more walk-in patients now than we do scheduled visits. And so we've done a lot of work on trying to shorten the wait times for students, and we've done a lot of improvements there. We do have a quality improvement program at Watkins, and we have multiple projects that are ongoing at any given time. We just had our meeting yesterday and talked about all of our ongoing projects. So one specifically that we're focusing on now is any lab specimens that make it down to the lab without the order already in the system, because it just creates a lot of work for the people in the lab having to chase down orders. So that's just one example of what we're doing. Our patient survey results, we do have the results from October and November so far. How we do our surveys is that anyone seen in the clinic in the months of October, November, March, and April will get an invitation to participate in a survey. We only have October and November, and what we typically do is score them as a school year as a whole. So I do have the results for October and November, but typically once we roll spring into it, our numbers generally go up, but we still weren't bad. We're actually doing really good. So these are just a few of the things that we like to look at. Is the provider listened carefully to my concerns, your overall satisfaction with your visit, amount of time spent with the provider. Obviously, we want to be friendly, courteous, and helpful. And the big one is how likely are you to recommend the health center? That's kind of like if you visited a restaurant and you tell all your friends you need to go there because the food's amazing. We want to be that way too. So we really look at that one. And whether you were in a safe and trusting environment, which we definitely want that too, and our efficiencies. And then another one that we're focusing on this year, because it kind of ties into metrics that other departments are looking at, is that you received information to improve your health. And then confidence about speaking to a provider. So some process improvement projects that we worked on. I have a really big background in process improvement, so this is a really big passion for me. So you may see a lot of projects like this coming from Watkins, which is probably why we haven't had to ask for a decrease or an increase in the health fee in the last 3 years. We've gradually decreased our pharmacy inventory. The last thing you want is a high dollar in inventory, because it's just kind of wasted money on the shelf. So we constantly look at that and determine what our best sellers are, if you will, the ones that are in most demand, and those are the ones we obviously want to keep on the shelf. So in 2017, we had $303,000 in inventory on the shelf in the pharmacy. That is unbelievably high. In 2022, we were down to 64,000, and we're at 46,000 currently. So if there is a med that someone needs and we don't have it in stock, we can get it the very next day. So it's not like people are waiting long, and we don't want to tie up funds. So we are due for our reaccreditation survey next month. So just about 5 weeks away from that. So we have been working on that diligently over the last year. And then we do birth control procedures in our office. Seems like during the pandemic and then not long after that, things are completion rates, meaning someone came in and requested information about it all the way through to the completion rate. We had seen a decrease in those numbers down to 60 to 70%. Last year we were 78%, and this year we're around the same amount. So we're happy about that, because we think what was happening is that we would talk to them and then the process would take too long, so they're going somewhere else. But we definitely want them to come in and have that here, because we can give them a cost savings. We also bulk order our IUDs. That way we can pass on about a $200 savings per patient if we bulk order. We just recently worked on improving our messaging through the patient portal so that it stays up to date and current. And then on our patient portal, we reorganized the most visited areas in the portal, meaning I call them hot buttons, if you will. So we want to put them front and center, the places that most students are going to, so that when you open the portal, those options are right there. You don't have to search for them. So those are lab results, pay my bill, make an appointment, upload vaccine cards, and send a message. We're currently in process of working with the health system on taking over our x-ray reads for a better patient experience. There'll be some, there's some big workflow involved in transitioning this over to them, but it'll be better for our patient experience. What happens now is the x-rays that get read locally, they only read our x-rays once a day around noon. So if you happen to come in the afternoon and get an x-ray, it won't get read till the next day. So by an external radiologist. Our physicians still look at it so that day, and they have a pretty good idea of what's going on. But if we transition to the health system, they will read in real time. We also just recently contracted with a company called Save More, and they will manage our reimbursement for our pharmacy and work on getting us better reimbursement as well as helping with insurance payment processing. And then we're continuing to monitor the inventory in the pharmacy and utilize our 4 vendors to ensure the best pricing and product. And this year we worked with KU Accounting and Shared Services on streamlining some open purchase orders and payments with vendors, which resulted in significant cost savings. If I remember right, it was somewhere around $3,000 to $5,000 a year in savings. And we're currently working on switching from paper gowns, which are the throwaway ones, to cloth gowns. It will be a cost savings for us, better for the environment, and it's a better quality product. Something else I wanted to mention is I think it's been almost 2 years ago that we requested that we add a second social worker. Another kind of passion project for mine, having come from healthcare outside of student health, was that we should have been asking suicide screening questions with all of our patient visits, regardless of whether they're there for a mental health visit. So we started asking the questions regardless of what you come for. If it's a sprained ankle, sore throat, you're getting asked these questions. And if you answer the questions yes, then we have a process in place for how we're going to work with that student. So just to let you know how needed that second social worker position was, during the last school year, we had 1,096 positive suicide screenings. 72 of those ended up meeting with social work, and 21 were referred for services, meaning it was an urgent situation. Just since in this last semester, there were 711 positive suicide screenings. 102 met with social work, and 34 were referred for urgent services. So, and I can tell you from having come from the outside in healthcare, we're asking the same questions out there and almost never get a yes. So it's definitely important for us to be asking with this demographic. You can see how kind of staggering those results are. Under service, we continue to have that physical therapy clinic in our space, and they're very strong. They started off with a half-time person 2 days a week, so 2 half days a week, and now they have 1.5 people working there all week. So it's really, really a good service. We added sports medicine clinic. Received grant money last year from Healthy Blue to assist with giving flu vaccines and also offer assistance. So with that money, students that didn't have insurance could get a flu vaccine for free, and then anyone who got a flu vaccine was entered into a weekly drawing for incentives. We just recently switched to a better translation service. The one that we had been using was a phone call, and it was hard to connect with them. Now we have a video call service. The other one service charged us a monthly fee. This is what things that we're always looking at. Charged us a monthly fee whether we used it or not. This one only charges us if we use it. So it's actually going to save us money in the long run. And the connection is within seconds, and they'll actually be able to see the person on the other line through an iPad that they're speaking to. Under financial, if you all remember back in, I think it was March or April of last year, all of the pharmacy like claim services went down, and the system we were using for processing our claims never was able to reconnect with our vendor. So we had no choice but to go with a different vendor for processing our healthcare claims too. But it's a little bit higher priced, but it works better and we get reimbursement faster. And then we gave all of our physicians a slight increase this year to keep them more equitable within the community. And then I already mentioned working with the insurance payers on increasing reimbursement for the RSV, flu, and COVID cartridges because they're pretty expensive. And then some prescription drugs are reimbursed at a loss, and we never want to take a loss. We're always mindful of how we're utilizing your funding. So we raised our over-the-counter items slightly, just very slightly. You probably wouldn't even notice, just to compensate for that difference. The new equipment that we bought this last year was an ultrasound machine, a new draw chair for the lab. This one allows to recline back in case someone is passing out during lab draw. 2 small refrigerators that we're going to use for taking to offsite flu vaccine clinics to keep the product at the right temperature, a new EKG machine, a new pulmonary function machine, and some other miscellaneous IT equipment. Now, if you remember, I said that doesn't come out of our budget. I know all those things sound very expensive, but they came out of rent money and or our like endowment accounts. So this is our proposed budget. And what I want to just say at the very beginning is that this is what we do internally. You can see it on maybe a prettier workbook somewhere else. We budget at the worst case scenario. So if every single thing we purchased and everybody worked every hour they were budgeted for, this is what we budget for. So you can see that our total revenues, and the revenue is always a guesstimate based on enrollment. We never know exactly how many students are going to be enrolled, but revenues would amount to almost 8.5 million. And then our expenses are, the operating expenses are about 2.4 million. It's expensive to run a healthcare clinic. And then salaries are about 7.4 million. So all our expenses with the operating expenses and the salaries come out to about 9.8 million. That's about $300,000 more than it was last year. We have several academic employees that we budget them at full time in case we need them to come in and work during the breaks, but they do work academic. And then we will always continue to do process improvement projects and be good stewards with the finances. So in summary, we're always looking for a way to improve our processes and save time or money. We continue to bring lab services back in-house as they become available, which will produce more revenue over time. Our salary costs have obviously gone up. We've talked about that. Our supply costs have gone up, just like everything else has gone up in our world. And our vendor contracts cost has increased as well. Insurance reimbursement has decreased somewhat. But even with all of that, we're going to request a flat fee. We think that we can make things work at our current fee that we're getting, which means we haven't requested an increase in the last 4 years. So I will add that we don't think we could continue operating if we had a decrease, but I'm happy to say that we don't feel like we need an increase. So, do you have any questions for me? You're welcome. I know there's a lot of information, but if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
So you've done a whole heck of a lot of work to make do without a fee increase. I wanted to ask, you mentioned that the building is getting old. In the event that you wanted to start thinking about a new building or significant renovations, would this be a scenario where you're asking for an increase to the maintenance fee, or that you would end up taking out like a bond like the recreation center does for expansions?
To be honest, I don't think that we need a new building. I think the building is fine. You know, if we just keep fixing things as they come up, the building's solid. And there have been talks on campus about a new wellness center, but that wouldn't come out of our maintenance fee. That would be from a private donor, from what I understand. So I don't see us needing to go down either one of those roads.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for presenting. I had a question about the survey, specifically the one where you guys started asking about suicides. Does that also include questions about like intimate partner violence and like domestic violence? And is that something you'd be willing to do if not?
So we do ask if they feel safe at home. And so that's a kind of a, I hate to use the word generic way of asking. So, and we always ask these questions. So sometimes people will come to their appointments with a partner or a friend, and we always ask those people to stay outside the room while we do the screenings, because no one's ever going to be honest with us if that person is with them. and then we can bring them into the visit later. But we are asking a similar question to what you're suggesting.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, thank you for coming in. I was just wondering if you could explain a little bit more about the insurer situation and how certain insurance companies aren't paying you back, and maybe if you could let us know what those companies specifically are, if you know off the top of your head.
Sure. We're only contracted with a few of the major payers. And so I just had noticed that now we have a business department that manages the insurance payments and the billing and all that. I'm not involved in that day to day. I just see our budget and I noticed that our revenue wasn't going up as I had expected it to. So I started doing a deep dive and realized that those cartridges that we need to do the in-house test, they are $60 a piece. So I noticed that there was 2 insurance payers who were paying us roughly $45, which means we're not even covering the cost of the cartridge. And so not even taking into account the cost of the salary time and processing time and all of that. So I did reach out to both of them. They request 30 days to start working on a change. So they've just gotten in touch with me because I put in the request before we were off for winter break. One of them is a little overwhelmed with requests. So I have a funny feeling that they're getting, I don't know if it's about the same test, but a lot of requests to increase reimbursement. So our option, which we don't want to go to, and honestly we wouldn't, is we would just figure out a way to make it work. But the option is, one of the options is to start sending those swabs back out on the ones that we're losing money on. But we don't want to do that because it's best practice and we want to do what's best for our patients to do them in-house and get the results within 30 minutes. So that way we can get you treated and get you back to class. But it's just, they're the only ones that we're contracted with. They're the only ones that can really kind of pay us what they choose to pay us. The others, we could bill the patient for the difference, but we don't really like to do that either. We'd like for the insurance companies to pick up at least our cost. So I think I've requested each of them reimburse us $75 or $80, figuring if we met in the middle somewhere, that we would still be okay.
Any more questions?
Around what time do you expect that you'll have this issue with insurance figured out?
One of them got back with me yesterday and said that she has 3 other requests she's working on that are ahead of mine. And so I don't know what that means. The other one I really expect to hear from any day.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Any more questions?
Hi. So I was going back on like the feedback forms that you sent out. Do you have anything on like information or complaints that might have been sent in, or like ways to improve, and how do you go about that?
So every complaint that comes to us, we investigate and find out what's going on. Unfortunately, sometimes people post things on Google instead of giving us an opportunity to look into it first. But we address every single concern. If we can get the student to talk to us, we prefer that we talk to them directly. We have some people who will try to voice a concern on behalf of someone else, and we always want to go straight to the patient. And if it's a process that we need to look at fixing, we definitely look into that. There was one mom who called me a while back who told me that anytime she would call, she didn't know who she was leaving a voicemail for. And she said it just didn't seem like warm and inviting to her. And so it made me realize that when we switched to Teams phones, all of our voicemail outgoing messages were erased and we didn't know it. And so I had everybody in the building put their outgoing messages back on their voicemail. But without that mom telling us, we would have never realized that. But yeah, we investigate every single thing. And some of them, every now and then we'll get a concern that maybe they didn't think they got the right care, or but when we go back and look, we have a medical director, he reviews the charts. We've never found an instance where we did anything that was not the best for the patient.
Back on insurance again. I was wondering, do you take all forms of government insurance? And I'm also referring to specifically health benefits that people may receive from the VA.
That's a good question. So we don't take Medicare. I know that that's mostly for people over 65, but some people younger have it through a disability. Medicaid, we've never taken. And the reason we can't take Medicaid is because if you have, now some states are starting to change this law. So if they change it in Kansas, we can definitely explore this option. But right now, if you take Medicaid, you have to open up your clinic to the community, which we can't do because it's a student health center. What we did do recently was contract all of our providers with Medicaid so that they can put in prescriptions, referrals, orders for things like if you needed a CT scan, and Medicaid would allow us to do prior authorizations for those. So without doing that, we wouldn't be able to do prior auths, and someone would end up having to go to a Medicaid provider in order to get those things. We are working on getting contracted with TRICARE, which is something we've never done before. So we just got the contract approved through legal, and we're working on, should be having that signed any day now. So I think that answers your question about the military dependents. We have a lot of military dependents here, so we're excited about that.
Any more questions? If not, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming.
I also had to ask them if they did TRICARE earlier.
So do you think surgery, like a year ago for next week, and then I called, and then they got rid of that, that's clips of the automatic. It's like not, it doesn't automatically apply. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, this year I just checked that.
Robert, are you also military dependent? I have a story I think you two might find funny. So my card was set to expire when I turned 21. I think the rule is it has to expire if you're in college, either by the time you turn 23 or by the time you finish your bachelor's degree, whichever comes first, right? So I got my letter from the registrar that said this is my anticipated graduation date, which is this spring. Would have been May 2025, and I turned 23 next August 2026. So I brought all of that to the office on Fort Leavenworth. Guy took a look at like all the information. He still entered my expiration date as when I turned 23. This gave me a full extra year of insurance.
Oh,
we're not complaining about this. We are not complaining about this because I would have had to go on the.
Yeah, dude, that's what.
I would have had to go for like the graduate student health insurance, if not. So very happy about that. Oh. I don't need it.
No.
I might have needed it.
Yeah, dude, IRS is gonna like come up with something. Or like.
Yeah. And she just texted me, she's like, oh my gosh, I'm sorry about it.
I figured there was an explanation.
Yeah.
They are both.
No, I appreciate the follow-up. No, I was just gonna ask you like tomorrow.
Yeah, you're good. Yeah.
Asking about graduation from undergrad or grad? Undergrad today, graduate next year.
I work as hard as possible to get a free appointment next year. Because the cost of insurance out of pocket is not as great.
What do you mean? I have the military insurance.
So you have it by the time you graduate, right? You graduate.
Yeah, the card expires August 2026, which should be after I
I know.
I should graduate insurance.
He said the word graduate insurance. Did you get accepted? No idea yet.
Oh, okay. I think you're
talking March first, so I won't know until like mid-March. But I'm hopeful, as far as I know, it's not that competitive. They also have some departmental partnerships that can automatically do before we're accepted. I'm hoping to go to, I'll go as the events for those recommendations.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, but I don't know.
Oh, you are, okay.
I always encourage people to yeah, if I get one of the scholarships I'm going for, that would be about $5,000. Then if I get a little bit of departmental support, then I can also consider working at. I think you're going early. Yep. So it's a 1 year program.
Okay.
But I could.
Yes, you think about it. If you're emailing.
Oh, yes. Public finance. The thing is, I don't think I need that to go into public finance or public accounting, sorry, if I was going. I think with a CPA license, potentially, if I was doing more towards like inspector general work, that would be under certified fraud examination or certified like one of the forensic accounting certifications. Those are usually more closely on CPA.
Okay, let me know if it's.
Yeah. I'm going to go for CPA, the master's accounting program, try to figure out all the students to start taking CPAs right as soon as they get the degree.
I was just like, I'm gonna quit a few, CPA programs.
Because, it's very helpful, but I think it was without going back and forth. People who do one copy of the one have to be made and all that because I think with my research back, I could end up starting more than running after I graduate from master's would be fantastic. What would you guys start? I don't know the starting salary, but I do know what I mean. Maybe I'll try to. Public accounting, I'm not gonna lie, forever, and public accounting has a way of starting in 40-hour work week. Plus, I would have to do it. I probably will, I don't wanna say campus prep, but Kansas City first. Ideally, I would like to go somewhere. In Lawrence, yeah. In Lawrence, yeah. Lawrence is pretty shitty for Kansas City left.
Senate presentations, but.
And then I present after y'all, so.
But we'll get them riled up here.
Appreciate that.
We have $1.50. Well, that was
How's the leg doing?
Much better.
Does it still hurt at all?
Not really, but I just have to wear tennis shoes all the time.
Do you really?
Yeah.
Great excuse.
Yeah, no, I know. For my sorority chapter, they're like, you have to wear heels. And I sent an email. I said, I cannot. And they said, I guess so.
How long do you have to wear tennis shoes for?
Until, I mean, kind of, yeah, but at least like a year. So only a couple more months.
Okay.
So that's better.
Maybe. What a process.
Yes. Is it in? Okay. Oh no, I did the thing again. I have to go out. It won't let me go back to the full screen. This is the most difficult computer in the world.
How are people presenting? Behind the podium or side of the
They,
podium?
it's been mixed.
Do you need us to speak in the microphone?
We can give you a handheld microphone. We'll just need that back for questions. But. Oh, well, that's.
You're still in the secret.
Awesome.
And that's after this level. Yeah.
Yeah, the black slide is that.
Yeah.
Coming back to you for that. Yeah, we're starting in 2 minutes.
Long week.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a process.
Are you?
That's me.
I'm Bruce.
Nice to meet you. What's your position?
I'm on the field.
Nice. You've been doing this for- Yes, I am the executive director. How long have you been doing this?
My other year.
Really?
Should be graduating this summer.
With what?
Applied math and molecular science. I think they add a bunch of like more complex words to make it harder. It's not.
I got lost. That's remarkable. Talked to a couple of guys.
You share it. Yeah, thanks. Cool person. She doesn't do bio though, so you gotta bring bio.
So what do you want to do? What do you want to do?
My research is in like computational biology.
All right, we have our next presentation of the night of the KU Memorial Unions. Please give them your full attention.
All right. We'll just jump into it. Hey, good evening, everybody. My name is Jack Credo. I am the executive director of the Kansas Memorial Union Corporation, and we'll get into why we say corporation here in a minute. I've been the executive director really full-time since July of last year. Before that, I served as the dining director for a couple months, and then the opportunity presented itself to move into this position. So that's me. But before we get into the rest of the team, I want to say thank you for your time. I want to say thank you for your continued support. Without this committee, without this process, without student fees, honestly, the union would not be able to be as successful as we've been over a period of time. And we're gonna talk about that and get into that. But I will tell you, the union team that we have right now are really senior leadership, our next level leadership, and really all of our teammates. They're really, truly amazing human beings. I have the honor to lead this team. And sometimes I always tell people it's better to be lucky than good. And I got lucky with this team. And so it's an honor to come to work every day and work with these people. But really, from your right to left, we have Brian Broxerman. He's our director of facilities. We have Emma Seville. She is the former executive director of student union activities. What a great program and team she has. We have Clara Catchall, who is I always get your between you and Bobby. She is the station manager for KGHK. And then, we're going to talk about how these two programs really are really part of the fabric of our culture here at KU. And so these are two great programs. And then we have Mike Ayers. He is our newly hired since August chief financial officer. And for a first time in a very long time, we're able to really figure out our finances and figure out a path where we're going forward. So we're really happy to have Mike on our team as well. Today, what I want to leave you with on this briefing really is who we are, what we do, how we do it, and then where are we going in the future, and why are student fees so important for those four things that I just mentioned. And you're going to get that out of this presentation that we're going to go over for the next 20 minutes or so. All right, this is who we are. We are more than just a building, right? We are a place where people are going to feel a sense of belonging. We are the campus's living room. We like to say that. We really want this building to be the campus's living room. We want it to be a place where students can come feel a sense of community and belonging. We've all been, most of us, I'm making an assumption here, we've all gone to college. But we've all been freshmen, first semester freshmen. We want this building to be something for a first year freshman that's having a hard time being away from home. And they know they could come to the student union and feel a place just to either join a group, join an organization, meet new people through Union Fest or whatever. But this is what this place is. So it is more than just a building. You can read all the bullets here, but I really want to highlight two bullets. One is Union receives no state dollars, right? Other than student fees, our organization generates all of its revenue, which is of all the revenue coming in, we, through our dining program, that's what we're made of, the bookstore, we have events, so booking this building, we have programs and marketing, which you're going to hear about today. Those are all things that the union's made of and that we do here. So 92% of our revenue is really from dining, bookstore, and events. The other 8%, really 7.5%, comes from student fees. And with that, without that 8%, I will tell you, it'd be a lot harder to budget and finance that 92% in order to make the improvements in this building and our programs that we're going to highlight today. So thank you for that very large 8%. That's a lot of money, and it's not lost on us. So thank you very much. All right, I want to tell you what our mission is. This is who we are, and you could read what the mission is, right? But what I really want to leave you with is something I've already said before, and you're going to hear it a lot this evening, that we are about community and we are about belonging here. And this mission, if you notice, is synchronized with Student Affairs mission, right? So my boss is Dr. Tamara Durham, and so we're part of Student Affairs, right? So our mission is their mission. Their mission is KU's mission. And I think we're all well synchronized and we're all after getting after the same goals, right? One KU, all the things that the chancellor is saying. I think we're very well synchronized. I'm going to tell you what we do, because this is kind of how we do it. And I know this is a lot on the slide. I'm just going to leave you with a couple things. But the senior leadership got together and said, where are we going? This summer we got together and said, where are we going? What do we want to be as a union? What do we want to provide for the population that we serve? And so let's start on the right side of the slide with the end state. And once again, you can read that. And you can see the theme, right? We want to have a great customer experience. We want to have great service. We want to have award-winning programs. We want to be amazing so that we can enhance the student experience and the facilities on what we are responsible for, right? So once again, we have this building, we have the Burge, and then we oversee the DeBruce Center. Okay. If I could highlight two of our lines of effort, the lines of effort are 6 things that we are always concentrating on to move the union forward. This is our strategy, but the 2 that I really think go hand in hand with student fees are engaging programs. Student fees definitely enhance that and allow us to have engaging programs. And the other one that student fees go to, which I'm going to get to in a little bit, is inviting spaces. It is our opinion that all of our spaces should be inviting. You'd want to come here. There's a lot of work to be done in this building. We want to freshen it up. We want new furniture. We want a new ballroom look. We want Woodruff to be a world-class auditorium, because guess what? Your college career starts and ends there, right? With orientation and some grad stuff. You go into Woodruff for your orientation day 1 in the summer, you're sitting in those seats. You should think that, hey, this is KU. This place is amazing. Look at this. So that's where we're going with this building. I'm going to end this whole presentation of where we're going with this building. So really, the 2 lines of effort, once again, is engaging programs and inviting spaces. So we got a hype video. We're going to show you a really quick video about the union. If it doesn't bring a tear to your eye, I don't know. You got to look internally. But it's a good video. This is a great place, and I do appreciate your support. Okay, so bottom line up front on this slide is this year we are not asking for a fee increase. We are asking for, which Bailey Myers loves to say. I didn't introduce Bailey Myers either. She's our director of marketing and program. How did I forget Bailey? She's a great person and really is responsible for this group putting this together and many, many other things. You all know Bailey. Bailey likes to say fee stasis. We're not asking for an increase. We're asking to keep the same level of funding, and we think that we can be successful with that this year. And just to refresh everyone on really how our fees are aligned, we have two fees, right? 514, which is for the Birds Union. We're going to get into all these in more fidelity here as we go along in the briefing. But we have the Birds Union. That's an agreement we had with Student Senate in the past. That fee goes through 2048, and that's really paying the lease off of the Birds Union. Then we have fee 520. It's for Kansas Union operations, so all the stuff that Brian does and keeping this building open and operational. And then we have the Kansas Union renovation and improvement, R&I. I'm really going to highlight this one. In the past, and I think it's been an agreement with this body, is that we've used the R&I fund really to keep the doors open coming out of COVID and through COVID, right? It is my goal and our vision really is to use the R&I fund now to make this building all the improvements. You're going to start seeing new things in this building really soon, and we're going to get into it. Like you could already see that we replaced some carpet out there, and there's so many more projects. We're going to efficiently and effectively use this R&I fund going forward. And I am extremely excited about the R&I fund. So I think it's going to make this building so much better. And then we have the other two fees here is the student union activities and KGHK. And you saw last year that we put these two funds in the operations. You all approved that last year, so you know how that is working. So let's get into kind of what we do, and we're going to get into some engagement slides and tell you what we're doing. Brian.
Thank you. So on this one, as the director of facilities that I get to monitor is what traffic looks like going throughout our buildings. As you see, we're actually on an uptick, which is fantastic. And even better news is it's the second highest that we've had since 2019. So we are on a good trend. What it doesn't show is even better news is that as of this point, we're year to date 3% higher than we were last year. 3%. I know it doesn't sound like much, so don't get too excited on me. What it doesn't show is how many people we missed on the weekends due to the big construction project across the street. We lost between 5,000 and 6,000 people on Saturdays. So that's really a big number that we were able to achieve. So well done to everybody. Jeff?
I just want to highlight one thing on the slide, the first under our people. I would say student employment is a program, right? So when we say engaging program, it's just not everything that SUA, KGHK, and the big event and all these other organizations are doing. I want to let you know that we do employ over 906 students, and that $2 million is what we are in payments. We are paying students over $2 million in salaries or hourly wages. Which is really interesting, though, is that 66% of our part-time labor are students. And so without students in this organization, we would not succeed. These are not student fee funded. I just want to let you know that, hey, the union is here to be a really good partner with the student body, and I couldn't do it without the students. So I'm going to pass it back over to Brian.
So in July, I got to have the honor of being part of the event services team. And one of the things that we look at through a survey that marketing puts out every year is who is using our spaces and what and how are they liking the spaces when they use them. So right now, while we use a lot of our time and effort to get more people in, what we really use the student fees for is to bring up that 79%. That the 79% of people said they strongly agree that the spaces are inviting. Now, I know a lot of you probably don't like C pluses, but trust me, with the student fees that we're collecting, that is our main goal, is to use those to get that 21% over onto our side. So now we go to Emma.
So a big goal of like union programs, which is like all the student organizations the union hosts, and
also like the marketing programs team, dining, you name it, is to create engaging programs and inviting spaces because, you know, the union is a hub for students and we're really big and positive about building communities, fostering communities, and being a part of the Jayhawk flock. So part of that is all of the lovely things you see on the screen. So obviously student union activities over the last fiscal year hosted 163 events with over 53,000 touch points. A touch point is not like a unique tracking number because not all of our events can use Cork. So we can get that data. For example, Union Fest, it's really impossible to track all 10,800 people who did attend this past fall, which is also the highest in program's history. So that was also very exciting to see. But those touch point numbers, we'll talk a little bit more later on because we're seeing a really exciting uptick on that. And then, like I said, too, with Union Fest, that's one of the first opportunities for first year students to have to meet other Jayhawks, meet familiar faces. Maybe it's someone from their high school or someone from their community, but then also get to meet all the awesome people and organizations on campus, even including you guys, Student Senate. But yeah, I'll pass it off to Claire to talk about more.
Yeah, just building off of what Emma is saying here, we're interested obviously in creating a space that students want to come to, but that students want to continue coming back to. I think retainment is really important. For me, at least, I've met my closest friends through working at KJHK, relationships that I still maintain today, and people that I love dearly, and that's not a unique experience. I think we've also seen a lot of cross-program collaboration just by the facet of having these organizations in the same building. So we have lots of KJHK volunteers that also volunteer at Big Event. We have KJHK DJs that are DJing SUA events, SUA volunteers at KJHK live events, things like that. So we're seeing a lot of this collaboration. We're also seeing collaboration with other universities outside of KU. The obviously primary example is Kansas Esports hosting the largest Smash tournament and having about 3,000 individuals in attendance, which is remarkable. I think you can see that these spaces are ones that people want to keep coming back to, and the numbers show that. And I will pass it back for some information on inviting spaces.
So as we've been seeing with the people coming into the building is increasing, the reservation of our spaces is also increasing. So year to date, we've had over 7,000 reservations, which is up from last year. Over 2,200 of them are being from students. So what does that mean? People are coming into the building, they're renting our spaces for whatever projects, for whatever meetings, whatever they need. And so with the student fees that we're using, we hope to make it more inviting so we can drive those numbers up.
All right. So you've heard about where we do things and what we do. I'm going to talk a little bit about how we operate. So Jack mentioned 7.5% of our revenue is student fees. Just to give you an impact of the size, our biggest operation is dining, followed by the bookstore, and then catering and events. So we're focusing on catering events, trying to grow reservations outside of the university. And one of the things we're doing within the university is really trying to win back the faculty and staff, trying to get them to further embrace the underground, for example, as well as head back up to the Union building. We even opened up the Hawk's Nest for a bit. We see what's going to happen there going forward, but anything we can try to do to create faculty and staff involvement as well. Of course, we're also always looking at what we could do to meet student needs. And sometimes that'll be a revenue driver. You may have heard, I think it was presented in the last Senate meeting I was in, or maybe I'm getting my meetings confused, but we're going to open up a Shake Smart at the rec center next semester. Excuse me. Yeah.
Fall semester.
Fall semester.
Next semester. Yeah.
Do you want to give the date? I'm just kidding. We've been talking about the exact date a little bit. One of the things I want to highlight, though, is this chart's based on revenue. So, yes, student fees are 7.5% of our revenue, but with all these other operations, we have to do like any business. We got to buy food, ingredients. We have to provide labor. We got to pay utilities, insurance. And like everybody else, food costs more, insurance costs more. Labor costs more per hour per person. So when you roll it at the bottom line, it just continues to really tell you the importance of the student fees. We're going to talk a little bit about our income on the next slide, but before I do, I wanted to highlight 4 things that you'll hear more about with Jack at the end of the discussion, and probably a little more from Brian, which is when I think of the Union Building, we got 4 initiatives we're focused on. One is to mitigate risk. This is the real boring stuff. This is like you got to get oil change for your car. You got to buy new tires. All the stuff that you hate spending money on, but you got to do. This building is 100 years old. I think the shell was built in 1920. Some of it is newer, obviously, but we have some really old pipes. We have some old electronics, even pre-electronics, I'm sure at some point. And we need to spend a decent amount of money, and Jack's going to talk about that, just to prevent that stuff from breaking. A pipe breaks, and we could have a major part of this building out for a while. So that's part of the boring but important stuff that we got to do. We'll also be continuing to fix things that are broken. Just in the past 3 months, we spent 15 grand on a leak in the roof and a new breaker box and all kinds of other exciting stuff. Now, 15,000 may not sound like that much. That was probably a pretty good 3 months. Next 3 months, it could be bigger. Hopefully not, but you don't know what's coming at you. And then finally, more of the interesting things. We like to try to keep the place refreshed. And I'm not going to hit on those. Brian will hit on that, and you'll see some of that in Jack's, as well as always looking to enhance the experience when people walk into the building. To me, as a parent of some college kids, I also think it's important because it's not just students that are coming in and alumni and faculty. It's also one of the parents' first indication when they're taking their kids on college visits. So I want to make sure it presents well to them or presents good to them as well. Okay, net income. You'll notice since COVID, our revenues increased. Good news is enrollment's up. That's part of that. Student fee revenue's been fairly flat along the way. And again, we're still asking to maintain that flatness. Expenses, of course, are up. I already talked about some of the big drivers in payroll. You know, people make more money now. Insurance is a whole lot more expensive, both health insurance and liability insurance for the building. And then, of course, our food costs and our textbook costs keep going up as well. Net income has been nice. You see 2.6 million there. But what you don't see on that slide is that 2.6 million is an accounting number for net income. Out of that, in FY24, so last year we paid 1.7 million in debt payments because that's not showing in the P&L. We also have a requirement to have a cash reserve. It's a requirement by the university, and I think it's also by the State Board of Regents. We want to see a minimum of $5 million. And if you think about our business, early in a semester, people are buying books, they're paying their dining fees. So we get a lot of cash early, but we still have to provide those services through the duration of the semester. So you think about September, October, we get quite a bit of cash coming in, and then we still, the rest of October through December, need to pay the rest of the bills, the utilities, our payroll, buy food for the dining halls, and the other pieces just go with running a business. So if you were to graph it out, you would see our cash variation. We might have a month where we're $2 million positive, and then we might have a couple months where we're paying out $2 million each month, and then a month where it's $1 million. So that's the other reason we're focused on how much cash we have on hand so we can make sure and keep going with the goal of not having to take on debt just to fund operations like I think we were back in 2020 during the pandemic. And I would just reiterate one more thing that Jack said. He talked about the importance and the 92% of our operating revenue driving a lot of things to support the building and to support programs. And if you were to back out, this this money, I think, excludes the R&I fund. So it's because that goes separately, that we spend on very specific things. We spend on very specific things out of all our student fees, as you so direct. But if you were to back those out, we'd be at a negative net income. And I already told you how much cash we had to spend just to pay our debt. So we'd be burning through quite a bit of cash just to support maintaining what we have. And that's without being able to invest in freshening the place up, enhancing the place. And I'm itching to tell you some things, but I'll let Brian talk about what that is.
Burge union fee. This is an easy slide and won't take too much time on it. As Jack pointed out, this goes through FY 48 and it does one thing and one thing only, and that's pay the loan payment for what it took to build Burge. But what it doesn't cover is the extra 400,000 that we spend as a union to keep the building running, for maintenance, for custodial supplies, for things like that that we take care of through the union. Now the R&I that Mike's been talking about. This thing can be broken down into two groups: the fun side, the not so fun side. The fun side, or what you were talking about earlier, the new furniture on 3rd and 4th floor, LED video walls, new monitors and projectors in the meeting spaces, anything that we can do to overall enhance the union. So like we were talking about with Woodruff, what do we want to see? What do you see when you first get here? Now the not so fun side, which Mike alluded to, what do we need to do to keep the building alive? And I truly mean alive, because at any given point, if depending upon what would break, we would shut down in a hurry, and we'd be shut down for a long time. Things like HVAC piping that is 40 plus years old. Things like air handler units that some of them are 60 plus years old. Those are the not so fun things, but they're the ones that we have to do to keep this place viable. Union operation fees, what we call keep the lights on. So this is everything that the R&I doesn't do. It pays for your maintenance supplies. It takes care of custodials, takes care of all the things that you see on a daily basis that keeps it clean, safe, and fun to be in. And that way we can keep it going and make it more enjoyable for everybody. Okay, let's see who we're on next. We're on to MA again.
So now that we've kind of talked about some fun and not so fun things, we'll continue to talk about fun things. So part of the union's student fee allocation is to student union activities. So a big part about SUA is kind of our mission, which is to serve as like the central entertainment and diverse event programming organization for the KU community. And with that, we really take that to heart when planning all of our events, deciding what do we want to bring or what kind of programming we want to bring to campus. And our motto really does serve that mission too, which is we're in the business of making memories. So whether that's you come to tea at 3 and you maybe meet your best friend for the next 4 years, or you come to Union Fest and you meet an organization that you decide to join, maybe you don't want to join, but you still get that experience out of it. So very like important part of that. And as Brian and Mike also mentioned earlier, my bad, words. We send out a survey at the end of every single semester, typically to those who check into Cork at all of our events. And out of those survey respondents, attendees rated our events exceptionally high compared to other campus organizations' events. And that was about 91% of respondents, so pretty big number there. And then also in that same survey, our programs helped. We're good. Help make students feel more connected to campus. Oh, you're good. Help us make them feel more connected to campus. So a big other portion of the events that we host, we try to make sure that SUA events are a safe space, a space to step back, take a break, kind of that mental break to kind of forget you're a student for a little bit and just enjoy something, whether it's as simple as decorating a picture frame or going and listening to a comedian, you know, all those kind of fun little things. And that was about 87% of our respondents responded very highly or strongly. Yeah, strongly. And a big part of our programming too is collaborations. That is a big portion of our programming because we want to make sure that we can bring resources to students, make them familiarized with it, but then also provide that familiar face if they do need to use those resources or would like to. So our biggest ones are the Student Engagement Center, you guys, Student Senate, we also want to try to make sure that we touch on international students and graduate students because they are just as much part of the KU community as as other students. So we work with the Office of Graduate Studies and International Support Services quite often. And then some other fun ones too that we work with often is KU Athletics, the KU Alumni Association, and obviously KJHK and the rest of union programs. Um, and a big thing too is that the COVID impacts did not really affect SUA. We programmed during the pandemic, we've programmed after, and we still continue to provide programming for students and be that primary resource for it. The biggest impact we saw during the pandemic was just restructuring of what kinds of events we offer on campus. So pre-pandemic, it was topic-based, so culinary, live music, you name it. Now it is more time of day based. So we have our daytime events that happen while classes are in session, our Thursday night series, those for students who are here later in the day on campus. We still have our topic events like Spirit, which is athletics, our gallery, which is arts, you name it. But that was like the biggest restructuring we saw. So another big part of it too is event interactions. Like I mentioned earlier, we saw a large number of touch points this past fiscal year. And as you can see on the chart too below, we are now seeing pre-pandemic numbers, which is very, very exciting and a trend we are still continuing to see. And a big portion of that too, based off of our cork check-ins from this past fiscal year, 9.8% were international students and 7.28 were graduate students, which are numbers we are still seeing grow and we are aiming towards to grow them even further. And then finally, what does our finances look like? A big portion of what we spend money on is our event needs. So that's hospitality. That's the free tea and cookies at Tea at 3. That's food for our talents that we bring in, or like the long big day events for Union Fest. That's feeding our staff, making sure everyone is comfortable regardless of what the event is. Talent fees. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's the money we put towards bringing in people like Molly Kearney that'll be here later this month, or hiring a magician for an event, all those fun things. Leases and rentals, pretty self-explanatory. And then event supplies like the crafts at Crafternoon. And then our next step is our marketing and PR. That's about 15%. That's really where we kind of are very meticulous about where we put our money towards. Because in our survey and previous year surveys too, print advertising is one of our best ways for students to figure out what SUA events are and what events are happening around campus. So that is a large portion of our marketing and PR budget. So that's all the posters you see in display cases and academic buildings, you name it. But that does also include digital ads like on Instagram, Facebook, you name it. And then our promo items you see on tables. So that's like a memento for students to take from events, or just kind of something fun for them to play with throughout the day, a pen, you name it. And then finally, administrative costs. This is also a really important part of our budget. Part of that is professional development for our leaders and members. And a lot of that includes like our leadership and membership kind of like retreats that we do. But then also conferences we do attend throughout the year. We attend 2 big ones. One is called ACUI and the other one is NACA. They're kind of just big conferences for other universities that have like SUAs and organizations like that to kind of think, pair, share, get new ideas, come back so we can bring new and fresh ideas to campus. But then also our leaders do go present at these conferences. So it's also an opportunity for our leaders to get opportunities like that. And then the not so fun stuff, office supplies. Everyone needs tape and scissors. And then our telephone too, which is how we get like agents, like if they call us for like talent, people have just fun little phone calls, all that good stuff. But that kind of does wrap up SUA's side of everything. So I'll pass it on to Clara to talk about KJHK.
Great. I'm going to come over here so you all don't have to turn your heads. Hi, like Emma said, I'm Clara. I'm the station manager at KJ. If you're unfamiliar who KJHK is, what we do, we are primarily a radio station. We have a non-commercial educational license, which means kind of 2 primary things. We can't advertise in the same way a commercial radio would. We have very strict guidelines that we have to follow vis-a-vis the FCC, where that we can get exorbitant fines if we violate. And then the educational part, KJHK acts as a learning laboratory is the language in our mission, but we are a space where students can really gain educational opportunities that are not being offered anywhere else on campus. There is not another radio broadcasting program on campus. There are limited other opportunities to get involved in music business, music production. So we really provide that educational aspect as well. We're on air 24/7, 365 days a year, which is legally required as being part of or being a non-commercial educational FM station. We have over 250 staff members, 75 DJs, which is absolutely insane. And we've seen growth on both of those numbers just consistently year after year after year. We also have I mean, like I said, we're a radio station. We do a wide variety of other things. As you can see, we have staffs that range from producing web and audio and video content to sports broadcasting to producing our weekly live and studio performances. One is getting ready to start right now downstairs. So we are a nationally recognized station for our program. We were nominated last year for 12 awards for the Intercollegiate Broadcast Systems Conference, which is a conference that happens annually in New York City. And we received the Abraham and Borst Award for Best College Station in the Nation. And that's between both radio and TV stations. So, and what's really amazing about traveling to these conferences, and something that I've seen a lot, is other stations are just very much in awe of how we've been able to create this community where students want to come just hang out in our space because it's cool and it's inviting and it's fun. So that's been a really lovely kind of community building aspect that's unique to KJHK. And then we've also been able to increase our local outreach to not just our other union programs like SUA and the big event, but also to other on-campus student organizations. OSTEM, the Black Student Union, are a couple that we've collaborated with, as well as off-campus organizations. We do a lot of work kind of bridging the gap, bringing students from the on-campus life into kind of the greater Lawrence community. So one of the ways we do that is partnering with organizations like Lawrence Pride, the Lawrence Music Alliance, and then most recently, we've begun a partnership with Haskell University. So we have Haskell students coming in for 1 hour a week to broadcast their own radio show, which has been really exciting. We have a lot of listeners. We get a wide range of listenership. So our mobile app, which we also won a national award for last year, has 8.5K total downloads. And that ranges from remembering from the data, I mean, Washington, D.C. to Germany to Japan. We have listeners across the globe. And then our stream, we had 58,887 hours listened in 2024. And you can also see a lot of those listeners are everyday listeners, which is pretty cool. And then our financials. KJHK is primarily funded through the student fees, but we also fundraise on our own. We have a development director, and last year we were able to fundraise $32,477 independently. Most of our funding goes towards staffing costs, but we also have vital operating costs that we need funded. If something breaks on our transmitter, or we have a mic break or a computer go down, like that's stuff that needs to be fixed pretty immediately. So it's good to have that those operating costs covered. And then development and communication. Like I said earlier, we go to the Intercollegiate Broadcast Systems Awards, and we also go to the College Broadcast Inc. Awards as well. And those are also both professional conferences, so students are getting nationally recognized, but also being able to make connections with other stations. And then pretty self-explanatory licensing costs we have to pay for our license, and station maintenance, equipment repairs. So that's pretty much it for KJHK. I will pass it back to Jack to talk about kind of the future of the union.
Thank you very much. Hey, I just want to say up front on this slide, it's a vision at this point, and what we're trying to do is align resources and our capabilities over time to make this place better able to support everything that you've heard today. Look, so far this year, well, let me back up. Funding streams. So to make this particular building better, our vision is to use 4 funding streams, right? It's our revenue, it's student fees. We haven't broken into the community of fundraising. We're going to try to figure that out very soon to see how we could fundraise and bring more dollars into this space to make it better. And then we have a great teammate working on grants. How can we find grants? Could we find grants for solar panels on the roof? Could we find grants to do some of the R&I things, better bathrooms, anything else that we could think of? Some of it could, support the Senate's Green New Deal. So we're looking at all these options. I say right now, the ones that we are doing really well at are number 1 and number 2. So let me talk to you about this vision of going to 2029. It's a 5-year vision. We're gonna, as 25 gets a little bit more senior in time, we're gonna push it out to 30. But look, so far this year, we have taken $250,000 from the R&I fund and have started small improvements on this building. We put new carpet in all the alcoves in that area. We put new carpets out here in front of the coffee house. We've restained some wood down on the second and third floor because it looks pretty messy, right? You want to be proud of this space, so we're starting to do that. We're going to use some other funds to put new furniture out here on the fourth floor. We want that instead of just hard seating and tables. We want that to be an amazing place that people can just come and relax. Our goal is to have new seating out there by the time orientation happens, and so that space is going to start looking a little bit different. But let me quickly just go up the line here. We have visions for Jayhawk Inc. downstairs across from the bookstore. Could that be a space you could book at? Could you go there before a football game and tailgate out of that room and have a cool experience? Could we put a faculty and staff lounge there for lunches? You know, there's so much that we want to do and have ideas with Jayhawk Inc. We need to start remodeling the bathrooms in this building, right? They're old, they're pretty nasty. So we want to do that. Although it's not in this building, I did want to highlight, you know, as a big Senate push that we are going to open a Shake Smart sometime September, October is our goal over at Ambler. Really appreciate the support on that. I just had to put a shameless plug in there for that. The pipe replacement is going to be about $3 million for this building. That is a risk mitigation. I mean, that's a big ask. That's going to come from our revenue and maybe some other things we're doing. But and look, you can see the rest. I really think updating spaces like the fourth floor lobby. What does that look like? Could it be brighter? Could it be more inviting? Could it look like the Welcome Center and the Alumni Center across the street? So when students come, they start a journey there too. They come here. We want it to look similar. We want it to look like a major college or a university, right? This is KU. We want it to look similar. A little bit more inviting, a little bit more homey, not so, you know, office space-ish. We're working with the same company that they worked with, Dimensional Innovations. How do we put more digital screens in here and wayfinding? And how do we tell our story better? How do we highlight students? I, you know, have visions of TV screens out there with student life on there. So when you walk in, you feel like, hey, this place is really highlighting what students are doing. So that's on the plan as well. We got to look, you know, other bathroom remodels. We got to get in an Alderson update in here. You know, we tightened up the vinyl, or the fabric on the side. Maybe this room looks a little bit different, a little bit updated, right? I want union floors. I want all the floors to look different. I don't like the tile. It's old. It looks dirty. We want it clean and crisp and bright, right? We're going to start doing that. But really in 27, I'll leave it on this third floor dining area. We're not Baylor University. I don't know why we picked green a long time ago. So we're going to make it look like KU, better KU colors down there. Pull that carpet up, better seating. But we're going to figure out ways to fund this. It's a plan right now. I think right now, FY25 and FY26 is a reality. And then how do we do everything else from there on out is a lot of hard work that we have to start doing. You can see the other remaining requirements that we have on there, right? Those aren't forgotten. They are not necessarily on the list right now. Working with the NPHC president to figure out how do we work together to update the Divine Nine room and make that spectacular in a place that, you know, right now kind of smells musty and moldy. I think that is a great opportunity to partner with another student group and have something that, you know, we should all be very proud of. It's a small space where maybe, you know, it's not the biggest space, but it should be one of the nicest spaces for sure. So a lot of plans. I think a lot of it's going to be reality soon. We have the team to do it. We have the support from the Student Senate to do a lot of these things. So that's what I want to leave you with is like, we truly appreciate your partnership. I want to say support. I feel like it's a partnership. So I appreciate it. And I appreciate your time and look forward to your questions.
What questions do we have?
Can I ask you to go back to the slide about your revenues and expenses year by year? So we have a lot of difficult choices to make this semester about how to allocate the fees. With all due respect, it looks like the memorial unions are sitting pretty comfortably right now. Why should we not give you a small decrease?
Okay, I'll start, and then I'm going to open it up to the team. So I think a lot of the tone of the briefing today was, look, we want to move this place forward. Your fee allows us to take that 92% and allocate it to better improvements, right? I think if you decreased us, even a small amount, we're budgeting that 92% differently. Then that becomes like, now we're making really hard choices. Are we going to use R&I funds differently? Are we going to continue to have outdated bathrooms and smelly bathrooms? Are we not going to have the same amount of programs? Are we not going to create a community and a sense of belonging? I think some of those things honestly would be at risk if we had a decrease. And I don't say it lightly. Let's say you decrease us $1, right? That's still a lot of money to us. And so I think for the first time in a long time coming out of COVID, that we have a plan. Before we were just in survival mode. Now we have a plan to move forward, to be a better experience, just to be a better organization. I think if you decreased us, some of those things won't happen maybe as rapidly as we would want, and it makes us have harder decisions to make.
Thank you.
Priorities change.
Can I have one more thing? So that's FY '24, 2.6 million. If you look at our budget for '25, I mentioned we're spending more on everything that we need to provide the operations. Our targeted net income is $580,000, and that's with a similar amount of student fees for '25.
So more in line with 2022 and 2023?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
And just the last thing I'll add on that, we are watching closely enrollment numbers, right? Enrollment numbers, as we decline from what the university is kind of projecting for every university across the country, right? We are making the assumption it could be 100, 200 students less. That equates almost $750,000 of revenue difference for us with dining plans and traffic in the bookstore, right? It'd be higher than that. I think with that decrease in student enrollment and a decrease in student funding, our plans change dramatically on what our vision is.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't know how to
You can ask your question over there.
one side.
So, considering health was one of the keywords in your mission, I was just wondering if these really high dining plan costs that we're seeing, about $4,000 or more a year, are actually based on any sort of data available for what would be healthy for students, especially based on the options here on campus, or if that is more calculated just to supplement that revenue, since it is about 50% of that.
Yeah. Do you want to talk that at another time, since it's not student fee related, or I'll definitely answer it. But all that is not affected by student fees, just so we're comparing apples.
I know, I'm just, unless anybody has.
Question we saved till the end and we have extra time.
Okay.
I have an answer for it. I will answer your question.
As you guys have been developing this plan through, I think it was June 29, what kind of systems have you had in place to account for and consider the student perspective and kind of those wants that the student body has when developing those ideas?
We don't. We didn't. We have. I would say honestly, we do student surveys, right? Maybe just give me the evil eye, but really the student surveys, you put a student survey. How do you like the food? How do you like the prices of the food? Well, it's expensive and we don't like raw chicken, right? That's what we get back. But have we truly asked you, what do you want your student union to be? We haven't. Ironically enough, we have now just developed a set of questions that we want to get student input. And we're working with a company called Dimensional Innovations. And they're the same folks, like I've already mentioned, that designed and helped figure out what that the Alumni Center and the Welcome Center should look like. They have a really good process of bringing in student groups and saying, if you had unlimited resources or you were constrained in resources, what do you want your union to be, right? We are going to do that. Before we really do anything major in here, what would you like to see, right? Right now, we're kind of making decisions. I think the new addition to CAPS right outside Alderson is a fantastic addition to the union. It's a service, right? Do students want that? Do they want more of a service? I don't want the union just to be a place where you come and eat and you hang out in a room for a meeting. I want you to come here and just hang out, right? And then what do you want that space to look like? So we do have plans to have student input because you don't want a bunch of 50-year-old people making plans for your space. And so we do take that to heart.
Thank you. Yep, that was perfect. Thanks.
What other questions do we have, Summer?
Thank you for your presentation. This question is partially in my role as a student. So I was booking a couple, rooms because I'm the president of an organization, and I noticed that the regionalist room wasn't available anymore. Could you speak more on room availabilities and how that kind of figures into the whole equation, but also just room prices and in terms of like bringing in additional revenue? Have you guys ever talked about charging for rooms to like outside entities or even students?
Yeah, we do charge, and I'll let Brian answer about the regionalist room because you got me stumped on that one. Charging outside entities, we definitely do. The affiliation agreement we have with the university says students, faculty, and staff, you'll always get the room. The provost office pays for that up to a certain amount, right? Every year. This year was up to let me back up. If we were to charge everybody for rooms, we would have generated like $1.8 million last year. The provost only pays up to about $500,000, and after that, you just keep getting rooms, right? So the provost covers those fees. If you're not affiliated with KU and you want to use our rooms, let's say someone from the Chamber of Commerce from Culligan Water comes in here and they want to use the ballroom for a convention, or the cybersecurity conference that came here. Yes, they pay for those rooms and we increase revenue. What we don't want to do is raise our prices so high that now people in town, it's more attractive to go and spend your time and your money in a ballroom at the Marriott. We want to be, competitive prices, fair prices, because we do want people to come in here for a couple reasons. Yes, we want the revenue too. It tells our story. It highlights KU, et cetera, right? Our event staff has 3 amazing individuals, and they do partner with outside entities, but it's that balance of what do we charge, and so we don't price people out of it, because we want people in our spaces, right? Because we do get people that buy our food, go to our bookstore, et cetera, et cetera. So am I answering your question? Regionalist room?
That is a really good question, because it shouldn't be. Do you remember what time or day?
It's just not even offered at all to even book.
Because it's on our reservation system. So
Really?
That does stump me, but I will check it out, because as of, and this just changed Tuesday, we only had one room in the building that wasn't reservable, and that was the glass-faced wall room down by KJHK, and that just recently got put on. So,
Bailey,
Potential point of information on that one, it might be not available online to reserve through the EMS site, but we can work with your account specifically to get that available for you to reserve.
we'll take a look at it, because it is reservable.
Yeah, you just might have to contact event services, and based off like Big 12 room being booked and the sound and all the things going on, then that makes sense in that way. So yeah, that's one of those odd ones that's kind of tucked away, so we gotta figure it out.
We'll check it out. Thank you, though.
So regarding conferences, I know the cybersecurity one lasts like 3 years or 2 years? It's been a major success in bringing a lot of people and revenue over. Are there like other efforts being done to like make KU like a hub for conferences and bringing people in from all over, because that would generate a lot of revenue, and then also just like intellectual capital?
I don't mean to say this flippantly, but it's across the street, right? Like that is the chancellor's vision of making that area with the new football stadium, the conference center that's in there, hotel that potentially would be built there and the apartments. I'm way out of my scope here, right? And this is not student fee generated. This is not student fee associated either. But I think that's KU's goal. We're always looking for outside business, but I think that is a great opportunity to be a regional, right? A regional hub for what you're talking about. It's not fair to answer your question. I answered his. I'm going to answer your question, I promise.
Can I add to that, Jack?
Yep.
And as far as bringing in outside entities into the union itself, we promoted one of our event services staff to a manager, and her responsibility is to go to outside places to see if we can get people to come into the union.
I would say first and foremost, though, on that, like, this, I don't mean this disrespectfully, but our outside business, I think we should be going after first is faculty and staff, right? They're an entity on this campus that I think they feel like the union is not supporting them. That's not good, right? So another reason to, you cut our fees, that's another constraint that we would have in order to get faculty and staff intermixing in our spaces. I don't think they like the food. I don't think they liked Grubhub. They don't like using Grubhub app. They want to go talk to a person when they go order their food. They want healthy food, right? They want different options. I think all those things that we're concentrating on. So when you say, what if we cut your student fee? Now I'm taking more of our money to buy better food, to put more money into the dining program, more money into the bookstore. I think that will affect student programs. The more we take away from that 92% and pay into some of those things that we're trying to improve. So I want to hit that point again.
Thanks. I just wanted to make a real quick comment based off the question that Hamp had asked, in saying that I think the union does take into consideration the student voice, although they might not have done like surveys on what they want it to look like in the future. They really do take into consideration the student voice, because this year I came to Jack and said, can we put a bar in the union? And he made it happen. And then also like Shake Smart, that was Turner doing that last year. So I think the union is definitely, and we as student body presidents are representations of the entire student voice. So I think they are really working to make sure that the unions is representative of what students want, although it might not be through directly a survey.
Can I add to that too? We changed our board structure this year too, right? Megan sits on our board of directors and gets to hear all the good, bad, and the ugly. And she has a voice and a vote of what we are doing as a union. Brendan's now on this as well, right? And so we have grad student and we have alumni rep on there. We changed our board really. We wanted a seat at the big kids table with the university, and we wanted to be heard more so that we could start improving, right? So our president of the board is the Provost Bifflemeyer. We have the CFO of the university, Jeff DeWitt. We have Dr. Durham on there from Student Affairs. We have Jason Hornberger, who's the Vice Provost for Finance. And then I'm the fifth voting member. Megan, Brendan, alumni, I'm missing one, and student union activities. So we do have, right, there's student representation that have real authority and fiscal responsibility and input to what we're doing. So I didn't answer the question the best way. I took that answer from, what should this place look like? I don't think we've done a great job of maybe getting input. What should we do differently in our dining plans? What differently do we want to do in our food? I think that is where we need student input more. But I think from the strategic part, yes, I agree, Janae. Thank you for helping me out there.
Simmer, do you have another question? All right, Razan.
Have you guys renegotiated the plan with Grubhub yet? I talked to you about that last time.
Yeah. No, it's not negotiated, but we are. So it's my goal, if I can financially make it work, to get rid of the 59-cent transaction fee.
Awesome. Thanks.
But Grubhub's not going away. It's like if you go Apple or Android, once you go there, you're there for a while. And we've definitely gone down the Grubhub, but I want to make it better for students, that they're not taking their money and paying 59 cents, right? So they're going to burn through their money faster. So yeah, we're working.
What other questions do we have? Yeah, go ahead.
Let me answer both your questions. So ask me two. Yeah. So dining plan money. You think it's expensive? I will say you could not eat out. It's called food away from home. You could not take $2,331 and go eat out in town for that for a semester. You couldn't. I guarantee you couldn't. For 3 months. Maybe you could. I don't know.
But like grocery shopping though, you
Maybe.
don't have to eat out.
Maybe. I would say we plan our dining plans that the student is paying $6.67 per meal when you go to Mrs. E's. A swipe is $6.68. That's what it really comes down to, right?
Yeah.
Don't correct me in public. Right? That's how it would be budgeted on a declining balance, right? I will say I agree with you that it seems expensive, but when you factor in cost of food, labor, utilities, all of our expenses that we talked about, that's how we all set our dining plans. Now, out of all the Big 12 schools, and I looked at 30 schools, all the Big 12, all the Kansas Board of Regents, we were the cheapest except for Emporia State. And I would say our food's better than Emporia State, right? It's getting better. We were the cheapest. This year we asked the Kansas Board of Regents for a 5% increase because costs are going up. So I think we are, you can go to the University of Nebraska and pay $3,400 a semester, but there's more expensive plans out there. I looked at all of them, we looked at all of them, and we tried to say, what is fair? Let's not overcharge so that we make more money and we look like corporate snobs. So we kept it fair for both the students and what we need to do to pay our costs, and take into consideration that we would like to increase our revenue in order to reinvest it back into our spaces and our people. I would tell you that every dollar in profit we make, we're not sitting on it. We are going to reinvest it. So I personally believe, and I know I was a college student once, and I was like, holy cow, I got to pay that much for food. I think it's reasonably priced. I also think from a dining plan perspective, we changed it from next year. I think it is an issue on campus that declining balance, that you would have money left over at the end of the year and you're going to the hawk shop and you're spending thousands of dollars on money you didn't use. Next year, our dining plans will be, you'll have unlimited access where you can get as many swipes as you want. We're going to a swipe system and $300 in dining dollars. Then you'll have 14, or you can do 14 meals a week or 14 swipes a week and $600 in dining dollars, or 10 meals a week and $1,000 in dining dollars a semester, right? So we're trying to make sure that the budgeting of that money is a lot better. You're not wasting money at the end of the semester buying Pepsi all the time, right? So we're really trying to solve that problem, but still give you enough flexibility. And instead of a declining balance, what we've heard students not being able to eat because they used all their money, we're guaranteeing you at least 10 meals a week with our new dining plans. So some of that food insecurity issues with dining plan holders is going away. From a healthy perspective, yes, we agree with you. But I would challenge you that there are healthy options in our dining facilities now. That was a big complaint at North. This year there's salmon and salad bars, and we're bringing a pho bar, and we're bringing, Mrs. E's always has healthy options. We hear you that there aren't healthy options. We're bringing in Shake Smart, which is a very low sugar, high protein shake company, and they have protein balls and all this other stuff. We hear you for sure. Our dining director, Lindsay Robinson, we've redone our menus last summer. We just redid our menus again. We just redid 500 recipes and trying to get more healthy options into our spaces as we go. It's not going to happen like that, but we know we have to do better. You don't need chicken fingers and fries for everything.
Thank you. I do very much appreciate that.
We
input,
are out
Kristen.
of question time, but if it's a quick question, we can do it. Or if not, we can send it to them later if that works. Thank you guys so much for coming.
We should get rid of Grubhub. Nobody likes Grubhub. I've never met anyone that's liked Grubhub. Just putting that out there. I think students should develop their own app that runs all the payment processing.
Interesting to see. I mean,
Because we talked about this in the last class. You know where that is. If you want to do that, I think I sent you an email.
I remember seeing the dimensional innovations.
We're not under any contract.
For the first time my freshman year.
Yeah.
And I knew immediately that KU was being scammed on this contract.
Yeah, probably.
No, that's fine. That's just, if you don't have my contact.
In my opinion, contractor is one of the worst forms of life.
What, sorry?
In my opinion, contractor is one of the worst forms of
Yeah.
life. And I say this going into an industry where like contracting is one of the three services that most audit firms provide.
Mhm.
Audit and tax are real services, consulting is bullshit.
Yeah, fair.
Appreciate it. Papers off.
Of course, I know, I'm interested. Since you changed it, I just couldn't see. I remember what it was like.
One more.
I want to hear.
What does this say? Potential Durasace matrix. No. I mean, I have the writing of a doctor. Yeah. Can you guys speak French? No, sorry. Okay.
Okay, yeah, that'd be awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, nice to meet you. Your question?
Ils ont parlé d'IA, no worries at all. Future, I haven't done French since high school. So, for the future, projet, I can still read French pretty well. I'm supposed to call you. I think reading those is
Just gotta lead on an attorney with firms that have a summer associate
I'll look at email.
Once everybody is back, we're going to start so that we can all go home sooner.
We're done? Yeah.
Read the schedule.
Hey, I was trying to strike a deal.
We've come so far. Last year, it was literally just you.
Yeah,
as
you just send it to my
the
RSS.
administrative assistant.
You've come
sharing
so far.
and Senate.
I know.
And now you're a whole thing.
Well, technically we're already.
Yeah.
If you send them to me though, then we can send all of the ones we have.
Would this be a separate line item, or would we just roll it into the overall Senate fee?
It'll be its own line now
Yes, okay, you got
Oh, yeah.
to keep it separate.
One more. Senate one's usually not too bad.
Yeah.
They usually just take last year's presentation and slap new numbers on it. I noticed because I did that. Does that make it go?
So I will not tell my class.
No,
No, I'll tell some people.
They have to be like.
Yeah. So I will not be addressing them.
I know so many.
Because they are. Oh my god. If I let my marketing class, that would kill me. You realize that?
Well, you have to listen. 6, 8, 10. But you, as time goes, they know. You studied like religious studies.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not that big on
Yeah, so it's just.
Well, I don't really like completely like balls. So I mean, like political philosophy, I have a completely different approach.
Oh,
Where I don't think that government needs to be morally correct.
I mean, that would be in favor of increasing. I mean, that's the.
It's like, I don't know if it's, because I don't think it's possible. That's a I don't do anything. There's always
We only make it possible.
I'm interested in where you get this.
Anyone elected has to stop the process.
Not the, that's a whole,
yeah.
Brendan and Danae look like the only two. Brendan and Danae. I could start without them and give them a few more minutes.
Which is funny because but like Zipski, Croce.
Sarah, you're all good on Sean proxy.
Oh, you should
You check
definitely
the constitution.
have Megan send an email about 2 questions.
Yeah, so your proxy.
So you're fine with the
Stylistic bullshit?
Yeah.
This is a free.
Right now, we don't need to make the fucking eating place move.
It's green.
So we go to Baylor, I'm gonna get confused.
But it's green.
These people are going to die if we have a green dining room and if they aren't able to pay $1 million in consulting fees, but just to talk.
Just Brendan and Danae, I think.
Think about it.
Dimensional innovations. I remember the first time I saw one of those signs at like construction work. I knew in that instant KU was getting
She's
scammed.
been
bad.
out of office for like 6 weeks, so that's why. She's okay, yeah. That's why Caitlin and I have like been going to finance, and then like another advisor has been throughout this process. I think Dr. Treadwell will be there all day tomorrow too.
Yeah,
I think
Chancellor's
that's the
having some
plan.
really interesting affairs right now.
I guess we didn't relay that to everyone. Megan knew.
Yeah, why?
That was about as far as we told.
Watkins is coming to, I
But-
believe, the next assembly meeting to assess our opinions on a
Good question,
KU
though.
success.
What does that even mean?
No idea. But we have engagement, we have access, so now we need success.
Yeah. All of the. Don't we already have like a vice provost?
I mean, I honestly think we have enough room in our budget.
Sounds about right. I thought, so far, I thought the vice president was very conducive to success.
Well, yeah.
Which Chris was also saying that Treadwell said that we're allowed to go past 2%.
Yeah, I love that.
And then also in the we talked about how to make less people has school credits count, so they don't take more classes. Yeah. I was like, I'm sorry, do you not, I did the room too.
Yeah.
Do you not know this?
It's fucking horrible.
Yeah, why would we bother? About 2.5. It's so disgusting. The blue school. Well, that's not possible.
Every time I see the color green.
If we want to keep services at the current level, it's not possible. I do think certain areas deserve cuts. That's
All right, everybody, we are going to go ahead and get started. Please take your seats. And please give Matea your full attention. Please take your seats so we can get started.
Hello, everyone. To introduce myself, if you don't know me, but hopefully you already do, my name is Matea. I am the Assistant Director for Student Senate Leadership Development, and I'm going to talk to you today about your Student Senate Administration. Which one? There we go. So first, who is Student Senate Administration? Hopefully you know who we are. It's going to be me and Caitlin Smothers, who's in the back of the room, and you've probably seen at a couple of your council meetings or assembly before. To dive into what we really do, though, for Student Senate. As the Assistant Director, I support Student Senate as one of the full-time advisors focusing on advising and leadership education by coordinating with student organizations, campus partners, and community constituents, and the rest of the Student Senate Advisor team. Overall, my role supports the stability of operations and mentorship for leadership development of you guys, the Student Senate. It's 65% advising and supervising, and with that, it includes supervising and providing leadership direction, training, and support to the Student Senate executive staff and full student assembly. I attend student councils, assembly, and group meetings, as well as am the advisor for the Student Senate Executive Committee, also known as StudEx. I accompany the Student Senate members on their travel to conferences. So far this year, we've gone to Iowa State for the Big 12 Student Government Conference, Fort Hays State for the Kansas Student Government Conference, and soon we'll go to Washington, D.C. for Big 12 on the Hill. I serve as your liaison for the Student Senate Executive Team and Student Senate Advisors. I have weekly meetings with the student body president and bring any questions, comments, concerns, or important information back to the advisor team so that we can all help discuss. And I help develop and strengthen meaningful and sustainable relationships with campus partners and stakeholders. 15% of my role is based on student leadership development. In this role, I help focus on coordinating professional development trainings for all Student Senate staff and senators through partnerships with campus partners. Last semester, we did a training with student conduct and community standards on conflict resolution, something that I hope to either continue this semester or just have a yearly training with the staff. I provide specialized support and resources to Student Senate members supporting their leadership development and success, and I work to collaborate with Student Senate leadership to identify and address what student concerns there are. And last but certainly not least this year, I help prepare budget forecasts and financial reports to facilitate informed decision-making through Student Senate Treasurer and the Student Body President. As the program coordinator for Student Senate, Caitlin's primary focus is in the financial operations of Student Senate and assisting administrative functions. She provides support to student organizations and university areas funded by Student Senate and the Student Senate Executive Team. She does 60% Student Senate advising and event coordination. Caitlin partners with the shared service centers to process financial transactions in combination with Student Senate Treasurer and Fund Development Director. She assists the student organizations and vendors in preparing paperwork needed in these financial transactions, solving any correspondent issues, and making purchases or payments. This includes purchase orders, invoices, contractual service forms, W-9s, travel reimbursements, P-card reconciliations, and so much more. She also supports the student funding areas, included the CCO, the Center for Community Outreach, Alternative Breaks, and any and all of the student organizations funded through Student Senate. She works to ensure that Student Senate is following university policy and state policies while completing these payments. Caitlin also coordinates with campus partners and managing other department budgets for tracking expenses and reconciling accounts for Student Senate allocations. 30% of her role is administrative support, and she does this through maintaining electronic and hard copy filing systems to organize documents and facilitate efficient information retrieval. She updates these documents and databases and spreadsheets pretty much daily as required, ensuring accuracy and completeness of the data records. And as well as she supports the assistant director and student senate advising team in our efforts and long-range planning of student senate engagement initiatives. In essence, the Student Senate Administration is here to support you and guide you in your leadership development and help fulfill Senate's financial responsibilities in the university community while helping ensure the organization runs smoothly, has stability year to year, and stays aligned with the university's goals, values, and policies. For example, some things that might not happen or would not happen as easily without the Student Senate Administration include hiring of the executive team, approving the hours of the executive team for their time worked, and processing the stipends for the council leadership, and the fulfillment of any allocation made through line funding, Wednesday night funding, or the Community Development Fund, as well as any Student Senate internal budget needs, like purchasing office supplies, event planning, or travel booking and reimbursements. To put a little perspective on this, 5 years ago, a staff member could easily reach out to HR and hire a new staff in one email, just saying, hey, I'd like to hire Caitlin, and HR could get that done. Today, that process is a lot different. It consists of first submitting a request form and then submitting a form to get it posted online. Once it's posted online and we go through the interviews and all of that's complete, we then submit more documents to HR to confirm that. And there's a two-step verification process with getting that person hired and then onboarded. And those processes can take days, sometimes weeks to complete. Taking a look at the numbers. So there's two sets of numbers here for anything that I was a part of. So last year for fiscal year 24, Senate allocated and the expenses paid was just over $300,000 between line, Wednesday night, CDF, and Student Senate themselves. We serviced 85 unique clubs, departments, or organizations, and we did this through approximately 480 transactions. And those transactions include honorariums, invoices, purchases from Staples, Amazon, Walmart, anything that y'all allocate is what we would do with the transaction. So far this year, which has pretty much been all Caitlin, there has been just over $160,000 allocated. You know the numbers for Wednesday night is 17. Line allocations are 102, although we know that not yet everybody's used their line, but that is what has been allocated. And CDF is allocated just over $40,000. Caitlin's worked with just about 64 unique student organizations and about just over 270 transactions, with 108 of that already processed or encumbered. And encumbered just means like a purchase order where the funds are ready to be spent and okay to be spent. We just haven't quite paid them yet. Something you might be wondering is why the transaction number is so high if we don't give out that much to that many student groups. As an example, a really good one could be, so last night at Wednesday night, y'all just passed for opera about $3,800. And Caitlin and I were already taking a look at that this morning. And that $3,000 will break into at least 3 transactions for her. And in the grand scheme of y'all's allocations, that's pretty small. So that's an honorarium, a third-party service for a photographer, and then $100 in general funding. That general funding could then break down to Amazon, Staples, Walmart. All of those are separate transactions that all take extra time to do. And an Amazon purchase just as an example, if the item that the group is wanting from Amazon is blocked by the university, that's just another email, another request for it to be unblocked, another time waiting before we can go back and actually complete that purchase. And then with that, Caitlin receives all those items, goes through all those items, makes sure everything's there, and then works with the groups to then have them come and pick up those items when they have time and everything. Another piece that's in those transactions, for those of you that have done it and have worked with me, we do travel requests every time before we go on a travel, and those travel reports are to be completed or travel requests are before we go on travel, and travel expense reports are due after we go on travel. And any of that can take between 15 and 30 minutes to complete, which doesn't sound like a lot of time, but when we're doing 5 of those, then 3 times a year, that just adds up to some more hours of gathering all the receipts and everything. And we do that because, one, to follow university policy and guidelines, but it also helps those that are traveling to get their reimbursements paid. And that's kind of important for all y'all. Now we're going to take a look at the fee. There's a lot of numbers on here, but I'm going to talk through it all with you. To start off with the fee history, if any of you were in the presentation for the Student Engagement Center, Jordan Brandt kind of went over it real briefly. But while this is a new name that you might see, the Student Senate Administration, the fee has existed for years, whether it was coming from Senate internally through block allocation or more recently through the previous Silk office. This fund has always existed. So as you can see, during required student fees in the fiscal year 2022 to 2023, Silk requested and was allocated a fee increase of $2.05 that was specifically designated to fund an administrative role for Student Senate. This was the point at which Student Senate administrative assistant role transitioned into Silk and became a program coordinator role. If you look a little bit more there, you'll see a decrease of 30 cents in fiscal year 2024. And then last year, the fee went back up to $6, again, with the intention of making whole and continuing the support of the Student Senate Administration. Of the $6 allocated to Silk, $1.95 is in support of Student Senate Administration, and the remaining $4.05 remains with the Student Engagement Center, as Jordan also shared. Looking at the fee future, so what I have up here is showing a budget for Student Senate Administration as a new department starting needs. It includes salaries and OOE, and the salary amount includes fringe, and OOE breaks down to include budgeting for IT hardware and software and office supplies, as well as travel and professional development. The travel further breaks down to include not only professional development for each staff member, which would be approximately $2,500 per staff, but it also includes the travel that an advisor does with the Student Senate executive members, where an advisor must accompany them on their travel, and that's about $5,000. And currently this travel is being funded from Senate internally, and it's something I hope to move away from them and through this fee so that Senate doesn't have to fund it themselves. And this year, for the numbers that we've already spent on our 3 trips, it was approximately $3,645 just for me as the advisor to go on those trips. With all of that said, however, the fee that we're asking is $3.50. I wanted to remind everyone, I know where your budget's at. I know where we're asking and where everything's at. I wanted to show what $4 would really do for our office, but I also know that that's a really large ask. So our increase ask is only $1.55, and that would cover pretty much just our salaries, and then we would figure things out from there. That's all I have. Thank you.
What questions do we have, Chris?
Could you please go back to the fee page? Can I ask 2 questions? Okay. If I'm understanding you correctly, the $1.95.
Yep.
That's the current amount of this fee.
Yep.
And that was part of the Silk fee.
Yes.
So now $1.95 out of Silk into student senate administration. The $1.55 that you're asking would be new money raised by students.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Second question, what is the minimum meaningful amount of an increase?
The minimal meaningful amount. So just to remind you again that $1.95 is our flat. A minimal amount would be like $1, but that would still put us at like below covering our salaries. So anything that we could get would help address any shortfall that there might be between
Why is the room
that
shaking?
difference and what could come from. You said it's shaking?
Did you not feel the room shaking?
I didn't.
Never mind. If there's any other questions, otherwise I have a follow-up.
Yeah. I think the union was planning to do that.
What happens if the increase is lower than $1?
Really, any increase will help address the shortfall that would come from our roles and like supporting student senate. Again, I know that $4 is what we really need, so $3.50 is already asking for less. So anything just that helps address that shortfall that we're already going to be having.
With great respect, I don't think that answered the question.
Okay, ask your question again.
What happens if the increase is lower than $1? What would the negative effect be?
I guess I'll defer to Katie because if there's not an increase, I mean, we're just be operating in a deficit with the two of us. Yeah.
Increase, if we stay at $1.95, then we operate deficit, and that's grows over time. No one's getting fired. We're not talking about anyone losing jobs, but that's a conversation then that Dr. Durham and the university and Student Senate long term has to think about how to fund if you all want to continue to operate, allocate, travel, and engage your curriculum.
Thank you.
I'll also share that when Casey Haney and I were running the simulation, $4.50 was really what we needed to get, a 90-day reserve and everything that I've been talking to y'all about. But as a new department, they do give 3 years to grow that 90-day reserve. So that's where we kind of were like, okay, $4 is what would be great. Taking it down to even $3.50 just to get our salaries going. Just taking into account, I know Senate's asks for the whole fee process. So it could look like, next year we come back and ask for more, and we just keep asking for more and taking what we can get each year.
Thank you for presenting. I just kind of have a structural question in terms of, I know you guys were taken out of Silk, but why aren't you guys put into Student Senate in terms of your functions are directly related to Student Senate? If you could just expand on that in terms of
Put into Student Senate how?
like how you guys were into Silk?
Yeah, we now are under Student Affairs. So not in the Engagement Center, just in Student Affairs. Not in Senate, which is also org chart wise under Student Affairs.
Okay.
Katie might also have something to add back there.
Oh, I was just gonna say, to make it better understood, like, they are not part of Student Senate. They are hired by Dr. Durham, Dr. Treadwell. Student Senate cannot hire or fire them, so they are not within Student Senate, they're within Student Affairs.
Got it. Thank you.
And I was just gonna add, pre-COVID, there was a full-time staff member who was within and reporting up to Student Senate, and Student Senate actually requested that shift to Silk at the time because of everything that I just mentioned, and then with the realignment shift to Student Affairs.
Do you have any other questions? All right, thank you so much for today.
And you're done for the day. I told you I would be as quick. It's just. All right, you guys are all free to go for the night. We have our Student Senate presentation at 11 a.m. tomorrow in the Pine Room.
And then deliberations begin at 1 p.m. If you have any questions in the meantime, feel free to reach out. I'll be sending some messages in the group meet and probably an email either later tonight or tomorrow. But let me know if you have any questions. Have a good night. Probably yes. Do you want to help? You don't. Okay. It will be after midnight because that's when the thing closes. Okay, perfect. I'll text you guys. You don't have to if you don't want to. I was looking at it and there's only like the at the end of it if you have anything to add. So I can probably and then
Is that good? That's fine. I was worried that it's not fine.
Yeah, because the highest we ever got was 13, but that was right after.
Anyway, what is our actual?
Let me see.
Oh, yeah. What are we, peasants?
So if the increase is like 10.25, we're taking 18 cents from SEC because they asked for it. If we cut unions by 50 cents, we can add that up to be the amount for students.
10:44.
Oh, hey, that's better than I thought. Never mind. Yeah, we can add that up to $1, and then we would have $10 for the whole rest.
Yeah.
And that's the version without paying the UDK. We are cutting the UDK, and that's more money than.
I got the questions. I'll send them over to Jack.
Probably give it to us. As much as I'd like to give caps. Yeah, people just added. They want to get
Yeah,
like
and so, yeah. And like,
yeah. Yeah.
Wasn't they in last year, like, this to all of you, just notification for that, but it is really interesting. Highly recommend. Yeah. Oh, I need to turn the live stream off. Yes, I'm still listening.
You're on the board, Megan. It's your fault.
That's my bad, everyone.